Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they said we got the 42%, we could get rid of those. So I don't care, get rid of those. Then all of a sudden, 2 months later, we started working on so many positives, Ordinance. So that's a back one.
Okay, can we get started then and rise for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a short moment of silence for all of our troops deployed and our first responders, please. Thank you. Okay, the first part of the meeting is the budget for 2022. So we're going to go ahead and dig right into that. And Andy, you're going to lead us.
Absolutely. So not sure how it was handled in the.
Is that going to work? I thought we set these up so they. Well, you can grab the.
That's fine. I mean, I can.
Yeah.
Loud enough.
Yeah, and that one used to come out the middle, so you could use it, and now it comes out the side, so they're.
We'll get it.
It's okay.
I know in the past, my understanding is that you looked at one fund at a time, both revenues and expenditures, and kind of went through the process there. So we can start that however you'd like to move forward. A lot of information here to cover. I'm sure we probably won't get it all covered tonight. The first part of the budget is the calendar. Again, first meeting tonight. Second meeting is scheduled for November 8th. At that time, council would give tentative approval to authorize advertisement. You have your 10-day inspection period, then that would begin before December 13th, at which time it's scheduled for adoption of the 2022 budget and a tax ordinance or resolution, depending on what council decides. Going into the budget message, wasn't going to really go down through and read everything. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at that information. If you have initial questions, you can answer them now, or we can just dive right into the actual budget. Question, go ahead.
The bucket. The bucket truck, have we looked at any other municipalities to see if they would like to kind of go in on that and split it?
We have not. That is part of looking at the valve exerciser. I know that Bonnie's back there, right? That we looked at possibly splitting that. I think we said Stewartstown said no on the valve exerciser now.
Shrewsbury said no,
Shrewsbury
Stewartstown was still interested in.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's a discussion that we can have.
One of them has a bucket truck. Who is that?
Glenrock has a bucket truck.
Glenrock has a
Yeah.
bucket truck, so we really need one full-time rather than borrow theirs.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm looking at replacing a utility truck that we already have now to 2006, which that would make that another utility truck, but it would also be a bucket truck also. With the door lift bucket that's in there, if that truck happens to fall apart or whatever, that lift can go in another truck.
That's a good way.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
good.
that's the way I wanted to build it, so it could be interchangeable, that you wouldn't have to keep buying, the same thing all the time. The truck's gonna wear out before the bucket does, so the bucket can go in another truck, get 40 years, 50 years out of the bucket.
Yeah, we probably don't have to do this tonight because we can go back to Shrewsbury Borough and tell them, hey, we have a bucket truck. Nanny, no. But then we could share it with you, kind of a thing. So.
Other questions on the budget message itself? looking at the budget summary, this is kind of an overview of everything proposed for 2020. So you have general fund, the newly created refuse fund, again, put in place to better track revenues and expenditures, water fund, sewer fund, recreation fund, highway fund, community center fund. Again, showing revenues, expenditures, a surplus or a deficit in each fund, your available fund balance, committed fund balance, just to kind of cover that. The committed fund balance is 16.7% of your annual revenues, and that's money that's held in case of emergency, just as good accounting practices. That does not include one-time revenue. So if there's grants or anything in the revenue number, we back that out. It's only 16.7% of your reoccurring annual revenue.
Okay. So it wouldn't include like the rec director or something like that, because that's a grant?
Right, yeah, the DCNR grant, that 10,000, that is not included. We didn't put it in there, but if you were to put the ARPA funds in there, you would back that out because it's one time, or in this case, 2 times. But any kind of one-time revenue is not included. So any bond proceeds or loan proceeds, we back that out of that number as well.
And so Andrew, you've got it only for the big hitters, the general, the water and the sewer, the committed fund balance then, right?
The committed fund balance, yes. Yeah, basically just your, where you could have an issue arise. And that's why you have the 3 lines or 2 lines down from that, you have the emergency repair fund, 50,000 water and another 100,000 in sewer, just again, to build those fund balances in case you do have an emergency, disaster or something. So you have that available cash. And then that bottom line is your uncommitted available fund balance proposed at the end of 2022. Obviously, all these numbers are subject to change as we move through the process, but it just gives you a general idea. One thing I do want to point out is you will see the deficit in the general fund proposed. Don't get too caught up on that, because what's happening there is we're not matching revenues with expenditures in the same year. So that 205 that looks like the deficit, that includes ARPA money that we received this year, but we're actually spending next year. So it happens a lot when you get one-time funding or you get grant sources. You receive the money one year, you spend it it could be 3 years down the road. So it throws your actual cash flow off a little bit during that time.
So next year will be in the opposite direction.
Well, next year, yeah, I mean, it depends. If you do get your second allocation and we don't spend it next year, it would balance out, but then you'd be back to a deficit then in 2023. It's just, it's difficult to match, especially grant funds or one-time funding sources.
Now, we only listed one of those ARPA payments. Why didn't we list the second one?
And that's completely up to council to decide. I only listed one because
I mean, we are getting it, right?
Well, that's the question.
that's the hope. I mean, everyone says it's coming. It just concerns me to budget that number without something to hold on to other than, yeah, you're gonna get another allocation. I think it will come. It's just a little concerning to me. Council can make that decision, you know, if you'd like to include the second payment.
The second payment is,
The same as, yeah, what is it,
245.
245,
Yeah.
so we would add another 245,
Right,
which would help.
right. But that's completely up for discussion as we move through the process.
something to keep in mind.
So do you want to start with general fund, since that's what's in?
Sure. Yeah.
Rather than go line by line, I think it would probably make more sense to go subcategory, if that makes sense for everybody. or works for everybody? Looking
That's
at, okay, looking at the first one, real estate taxes, really no large change proposed for 2022, just realigning the numbers with what's expected for 2021.
And that shows no increase to taxes.
At this point, there is no proposed increase in the millage for general or fire.
Now, Franklin Square, that'll probably add a little bit
It does, yeah.
It
in
will.
addition to this.
Yeah, and we can look at that in the appendix, which is the real estate tax kind of analysis for the year. You can see that your taxable assessed millage did go up. But personally, I always like to be a little bit more conservative with those income numbers and budget more at the rebate rather than at the face, because you'll have some that'll go to collection, you'll have some that'll pay at face, so if you kind of keep it on the lower end and you get more, great. As long as, you know, this council's okay with that policy.
I think it's good. It's sound planning, I think.
Looking at your Act 511 taxes, this is your real estate transfer tax, and then your earned income taxes. Again, some small changes with regards to current year and prior year. Earned income taxes, just trying to realign those numbers. Realty transfer tax obviously was extremely high in 2021 because of the market. I backed that number back down a little bit to what was proposed for 2021. And I think that's a pretty solid number for next year. Questions there?
And is that the same, Andrew, for earned income taxes, just to be on the conservative side? So
Yeah.
Yeah, for next year.
Amusement tax, if we're gonna figure on collecting 10.6 this year, don't you think next year's gonna be higher, because they're not gonna be affected at all by COVID? And they're really pushing, that's pretty much NCR.
Right, right.
Is there anything else that goes into that amusement tax here?
They're pretty much the only company that meets the regulations in that ordinance.
You don't have, there's no corresponding gazette for the amusement tax, and I think we made kind of a handshake commitment
Yeah.
that we were going to donate some amount of the amusement tax back to NCR because of COVID and because of the repairs they had to make on the one engine.
And that was for this year, this fiscal year?
I don't know that we agreed on a year.
I don't know.
I thought we did,
We voted on it earlier in the year.
Yeah.
I know, we gave them some money.
Okay, so that's not for this fiscal year then?
well, that was 21, but we wouldn't give it to them until 22.
Right. So there should be an expense out, right?
I think,
I mean, we can take the money in the income and pay it out of the income account, or we can create a new expense account as basically a donation account.
for 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whatever you'd like to see there, I mean, that's,
Well, why don't we go, I have to go back and check my notes. I have those, but
We didn't do it for this year, I thought it was for 21.
We did, but we wouldn't pay it until 22 because
Right.
we don't know what the total is gonna be till the end of this year. Right? They could have a
Yeah.
gangbuster year and it could be more, and I think we looked at a percentage, didn't we?
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Anyone remember off the top of their head?
So if they have a good year, you're saying we wouldn't reimburse them, we wouldn't donate anything, if they had a.
Yeah, no, this was specifically
One
because
year.
of COVID and because of the engine repair. They asked us if we would participate,
Okay. Yeah.
and we said yes. We brought it back to, we said we'd bring it back to council. We brought it back to council and we agreed
I thought it was a third.
I'm thinking it was a third.
That's what sticks. in
Someone
my
would
head.
have said a third, I would have said, yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, I think it was a third.
Yeah,
I can look it up.
okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure it's allocated properly.
They won't let us forget it.
Okay, license and permits. Again, just significant change there to match up the, well, I guess not compared to the 2021 budget, sorry. Just to realign the franchise fee. Fines, again, no real major change there proposed.
Can I ask a question about the fines? How do you double check to make sure that we get what we're owed? Because that's come up in the past, that it's going to Shrewsbury, and then Shrewsbury doesn't reimburse us, and they realize that, wait a minute, this isn't all ours.
You're talking about traffic or?
Yeah,
Motor
traffic
vehicles.
fines in New Freedom should come to us, and it was going one check
Yep.
to Shrewsbury, because, I think because of the Buffy and the, or John, well, John was the, chief, well, not the chief, but the head of the, commission.
Commissioner. That would be Glen Rock, though.
I just know I know we had a situation, and I know Buck gave me a check to bring back. So I was just concerned that they're not getting their, do you get a report from,
Well, we
Chief?
get, not from the chief, however, the report that you get from the magistrate breaks down the individual and what their fine was, but that doesn't actually give the location of the incident. It might give their address, but not the location of where the violation occurred, because that's really what matters for a motor vehicle.
is that something that you would like me to bring up at next?
Yeah, if there's any way to
Track it.
differently,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting. I mean, I don't know if anybody heard of the issue with the clerk of courts, and a couple years ago, where for DUI fines, they were actually,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a lot of money too.
it was a lot of money. It was mainly between New Salem Borough and West Manchester Township and Paradise Township
Yep.
and Jackson Township.
A lot of money.
And it all related to the regional departments and not having the codes in the software properly. So it can happen. It's a clear example. New Salem had to enter a 20-year agreement to pay the money back. It was that
Let me
much
see,
money.
let me see how Gail, their accountant, registers that in her books and make sure that it's.
That's okay.
we're
And
getting
that
our fair
really
share.
happens when you have a regional police.
Yeah, it has happened in the
Yeah.
past. Okay, I'll do that.
We get a lot of fine when we get, do we ask questions about what we do this? Forget about it, hope they don't catch us.
And that's the thing, New Salem, it was over 20, or it was over 16 years, and they brought it up multiple times. And they were like, no, it's right. And
Oh, so they did.
oh, they brought it up, yeah, because they were getting checks of $2,000 to $3,000 a month from the
Right.
clerk of court as well.
Right.
For DUI.
For DUI, so you knew it was wrong, but they kept saying, no, it's right, and
That's right.
Well, I guess it was right, but it was wrong in the system.
what they saw was right, but until they actually dug deeper.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't end up in court if they've been held out, thinking that they didn't pay it back.
Yeah, there was a lot of litigation threatening, but
So is the property lease for Verizon, is that for, down on Pleasant?
yes, the one that doesn't exist, but it does.
But it does.
Hey, why didn't we ever get before?
Well, so what happened before is that money was rolled into the Comcast, the
Okay.
342-100.
Now we're splitting them out.
Now we're splitting them out because the Comcast lease increased this year when we renegotiated, it went up
That makes sense.
$2,500. So that's why we're coming out
So they really did pay rent, it just doesn't reflect in the other. Gotcha.
Right, yeah.
And again, the federal grants, that American Rescue Plan, I don't know if we want to include that, or,
That's up to council.
I mean, I thought we were all pretty confident that that was coming down the pike, but.
Well, the money's been allocated at the state level, so I think I would be fairly confident that we're getting it. I don't think that they can reallocate it to something other than what it was intended for.
Right.
So, does anyone have any feelings as far as, like, I don't know how they would not be able to give it to us since it's been allocated? Is it tied to the federal budget? I don't think so.
I think the federal's already allocated it to each state, and then the state came down and allocated it to each
I don't think
municipality.
not increasing the spending ceiling would affect the money we get.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It'd be nice to know if the state could reallocate it or spend it on something else, if they wanted to, or if they thought they needed to, because, I mean, we're not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of municipalities about in Pennsylvania, right, that can get money. I don't know, it just seems like.
There's a lot of places already have that money spent, you know, there.
Yeah.
You see,
Why don't we not make a change tonight and revisit it before we finalize? And that way,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe our state rep would know that.
yeah, that's what I was
one of
thinking,
them
if we
would know.
called Kristen Phillips Hill and asked, you know.
Yeah, how secure is it, or we're sure so that,
Yeah.
you know, we don't go down the road and say, you know, all right, we're gonna spend it on something, and then something doesn't happen, and somebody's gonna be disappointed with.
Yeah.
Would our solicitor have a feel on that?
I can ask. Yeah.
I mean, for first shot anyway.
and I can ask also if you want, look, I'm going to Harrisburg to spend the day with Kristen Phillips Hill, so.
It's worth it. It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
worth an ask.
Yeah,
As
I
a
mean,
matter of fact-
it's just a filling.
Make a list for me and I'll,
See if they'll write you a check when you're up there.
yeah, see if they'll do that. But seriously, anybody has any questions or comments, let me know. She's really into New Freedom. She loves New Freedom.
All right. So again, like we mentioned earlier, we're showing that DCNR grant in there for $10,500 for the Regional Recreation Director study.
Now, there's no money in here right now for the recreation director proper. It's just,
Pay for it until next year.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
well,
you don't think the study will be done, you don't think they'll start it mid-year?
till we go through the study and then put everything into place and hire someone, I think you're at this time next year.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but, so, I mean, you might have a month or two of expense.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that big of an expense because they're covering the salary at 100%. So it would be, is that a register?
That's what
That
I
was
said,
my
it's
phone.
good
I've got it
timing.
plugged in so we don't lose Inga when I call her in for the second part of the meeting. Sorry.
Your state shared revenue, they're pretty explanatory there, where they go, where they come from. Questions on those line items? Your intergovernmental shared, obviously the fees for UCC work and code enforcement with Stewartstown, any kind of other municipal, intermunicipal services that we would provide, for example, Glen Rock street sweeping, and then the workers' compensation reimbursement for our costs for roads. General government, again, basically just zoning and subdivision fees, application fees. Nothing planned, but, you know, just there as a placeholder.
Yeah. I don't know if now's a good time to bring it up or not, but we went with an expanded advertising for zoning hearings. And what that did to us, it raised the cost of advertising from, I think, $180 or thereabouts, up to like $600 to advertise, and our zoning fee's only $500. So we, again, I don't know if this is the proper time to bring it up, but we may want to actually consider one of two things. Either raising the zoning fee to cover the increased advertising, or decreasing the advertising requirement to just putting, like we used to, where we said, you know, there's a zoning hearing, give the property address, and then someone can look and see, yes, I'm close to that property address, I'm gonna go in and get a copy at the borough office, or even have it posted in the borough office, and copies available for people to pick up. It's whatever your pleasure is, but we're gonna have to do one or the other, either raise the zoning application fee, and with the problem, again, I'll soapbox a little bit, the problem with that is, it doesn't just hurt a big developer, it hurts you. If you want to go to get a zoning variance for your garage, it's going to cost you now, instead of costing $500 for a zoning application, it might cost you $800 or $900. It really becomes prohibitive, but if we do the increased advertising, the money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah, and I think across the board, as we go through the budget process, especially in December, those resolutions for those fee schedules need some serious attention. I know we did one at the beginning of the year just to try to clean everything up, but as we go into 2022, fees for inspections and fees for applications like zoning hearing board, they need to be adjusted to come up to, again, zoning hearing, you cannot cover all your expenses, you can cover some.
Did we just do that by motion when we originally, I know the discussion came up that,
No, we actually had a fee resolution, and we made a motion to adopt it, and we adopted it.
You're saying the change in advertising?
changing the advertisement, we said we were gonna be a little bit more,
Right, yeah, but I don't think we realized that the impact per word from York Daily
yeah,
Record was.
they charge by line.
Yeah, yeah, so,
Yeah, I mean, I knew when we did that, it would drastically.
Would we change that by resolution, or just a motion that
I think it
it'll
was
be
just
available here? I mean, if we wanna say, okay, let's keep it the way it is, but make it available at the borough
and
office,
then keep it the way it was.
keep it the way it was, and then, yeah, I didn't bring mine along, but that's.
Well, I think there were some, personally, my feeling is I think the advertisement done before was a little vague. I think it needed a little bit more information, more on what this section actually entailed. It's back. I saw it.
Yeah.
No, it can keep going. Yeah, this is the advertisement now.
Yeah.
So again, we're stating the case, who the application was by, their address, what their variance is, where the property's located, in what district, and then how they can examine the full application. I mean, this is pretty, yeah, it's the same for planning and zoning. This is pretty standard, but
So how can you economize on words or just, yeah?
The big thing was, okay, zoning ordinance number 205-37.
Right,
What does
yeah.
that mean?
Yeah.
Can we make that more
Well,
succinct?
I think you
and
at least need to list the address. That way, if you live at 7 Matthews and I live at 6 Matthews, you could say, well, 6 Matthews is doing something. Maybe I should go look, because he's my neighbor.
sorry.
That's all.
One thing with this application is this is for two. So this whole middle
Oh, true.
is actually, would be pulled out. So again, looking at line cost, you'd probably drop that maybe $100. But you're still looking, normal, like this advertisement would be around $500 to run this twice. Remember, your zoning hearing board, you have to run 2 times.
You get discount for running it twice,
Oh,
don't you?
yeah, no.
Don't you?
No. I thought you were being, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we used to, when I worked at Hartenstein's, we get a discount for running it the second time.
If they do, they just build it in.
Put it in as an obituary.
This is a smaller font.
They said.
Yeah,
They set the font.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted us to be aware of that and to be thinking
Good
about
point.
that. And when we get towards the end of this and Andy brings up the new fee structure, that's why. So we either have to change it a little bit or increase the fee to cover as much of our
Is there a way to
cost.
avoid actually putting a numeric value on it, to say the applicant is responsible for advertising costs?
No, that
I
could
mean,
work.
does that pass muster with?
I'd have to check the NPC
Yeah.
on that to see what it says. I know it says, you can charge a fee and it can cover your administration, your advertisement, cannot cover your solicitor.
Right.
And I have to check on the stenographer. I don't think it's supposed to cover your stenographer either. So basically you have, it's your little bit of administration fee, which, could be, it can be a lot because it takes a while to put the packet together, put everything together, and then it's your advertisement. So most zoning hearing board, you're looking at $600 to $750 for a zoning app. So ours set at $500 is probably a little light, a little low, unfortunately.
We really can't break it up where we have one advertising template for individuals and another one for, developers.
No, because it goes on by what they're requesting. So if they're requesting
Yeah.
one variance or one special exception of vehicle
Per
development, you could have a couple, depending on what's needed.
Now, here's a thought, I don't know if we could do it. What if we go back to the old way of being concise, but put at the bottom for details, please see, we're still working on our new website, but please see New Freedom website and see the address, ta-da, then they can look at the whole thing and what's going on the website.
Yeah. And it does say a little bit like the application's available here. We might be able to, we can look at that again and see if we can tweak it down a
And then
little
put
bit.
the whole thing on the website like you have there, so
Sure.
people can see it.
Yeah.
You're
that
still
worked,
doing due diligence by virtue of the law, and
yeah. I'm just trying to keep it easy for citizens who want to shed,
absolutely.
Something.
I agree with you, Andy, I'd like to see that too, where we can make it less for someone building something, or doing something like that.
Yeah,
That does make it get pretty expensive.
okay. Okay.
Moving on to the public safety category, which is most of your permit fees. Basically, we're looking at a decrease there just because of coming to the end of the Burkentines development, Franklin Square development. So we should hopefully slow down in that category. Again, looking at more conservative numbers. Questions? Last page for general fund revenues, not too much on that page.
Donated funds, rec match, I don't understand, what was that for?
For the park.
Donated funds from,
The state,
okay, was that like for the, concerts, or?
For the playground, in this case, that they're putting in now.
Okay, for that. But it's costing more than that. I thought the total amount was covered by donation.
I think some of that was actually recorded in 2020. some of the money that was received, plus there's money coming from the county for Marcellus Shale for that too.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
What's miscellaneous?
Yeah, that's a lot of miscellaneous
There was,
this year.
Tara and I went over that, and I'm drawing a blank on that now. This was money received from the county for COVID. COVID relief
Code.
money.
So that 41,762 is what we've seen, that's what we're getting from that.
Yeah, that's
We already
not,
got
that's
it.
not all COVID relief money, but that's some. Some was deposited in the miscellaneous revenue.
And next year is just an estimate of what it might be.
Yeah, that wouldn't be any COVID money, that's just miscellaneous income, yeah.
Hopefully there will be no COVID money next year.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And then the last line item, 393, that's the proceed of your long-term debt. That's this year's general obligation note. That's the balance of those funds, pulling that money out of the available fund balance for the roads, road and stormwater projects, as well as the public works renovation. Okay.
We had sale of vehicles there too, I missed the sale of vehicles thing, we said, but a couple of vehicles that we sold.
Yes, that was partly that was some of the money in that 41 as well too. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, that was
That was separate.
the separate, the 54, yeah. That was all the municipal sales from earlier this year. I know you had mentioned you'd like to match funds. Did you want to skip the general fund expenditures, or do you want to keep going on revenues?
Skip? What did you say? Oh, stay in revenue? Okay. I'll go along with the majority.
Again, refuse fund, that's newly created. That is my proposal, just to try to delineate refuse expenditures that relate to, obviously, collection of garbage and recycling in the borough and the contract, as well as what money is being brought in, charging for fees and services. So your recycling performance grant, that's based on exactly what it says, the ability for the residents of the borough to recycle. It's based on tonnage, and the formula changes periodically. That DEP, a couple of years ago, they actually dropped the formula so that the fund would last longer to provide these grants every year. So that's a form that we fill out every year, send in, they reimburse you a little bit of money for your recycling performance. Looking at customer fees, what was budgeted in 2021 was just over $500,000 in fees. And then later on, we can look at expenditures and where they align. What we're proposing for 2022 is an increase in the refuse. And that, where I know we're going to talk a little bit later on the agenda about, in order to fund the current contract, which is twice a week collection for garbage, once for recycling, one large item, that there's a pretty significant increase needed. That increase is two parts. One, same thing across almost every industry. There's employee shortage, there's rising costs, fuel costs, maintenance costs, compliance costs, and like we discussed, labor issues. The other one is when you really, this is a key example why this needs to be separated from the general fund. When you look at what was budgeted for 21 compared to the expense, it was less. So there already wasn't enough there to really fund the expenditures. So we have to basically make two jumps to catch up. I will, go ahead.
All I was gonna ask is, You mentioned, both in your report and this evening, if we went to once a week collection,
Yeah.
does that impact how much we will owe? Will it be reduced, or will it be the same, or increased?
It would probably reduce, however, I can share some of the pricing comparisons that Penn Waste provided. And at this point, with the contract extension, we wouldn't be able to switch to once a week. In order to switch to once a week at this point, you would have to rebid the entire contract. At this point in the year, I don't think that's going to benefit you anything, moving forward. For example, we can look at a new contract for 2021, Winterstown Borough. They have twice a week, once a week recycling. Their bill is now $29.50 a month. And if we're looking at New Freedoms, we're going to be like $26.67. So you're still less and comparable. Looking at once a week, even if you go to Shrewsbury Borough, they're once a week, they're $25.72.
Yeah.
So for $1
They're
more.
only once a week?
What's that?
They're only once a week?
Yeah, according to this document from Penn Waste, yeah. Hopewell Township is twice a week, their bill is $28.70 a month. So, but you can really see that even at $26.67 a month, for refuse collection at twice a week with a large item and recycling, it's still a good value for where the market is at this point. So I really think extending that contract 1 year, and then looking at next year, rewording the contract. I know there's been requests from residents to look at providing, the hauler providing cans with regards to recycling and refuse, and that's something that we can look at the contract too. But then we can rebid that early enough that if there is a significant change, you have an opportunity to rebid. Maybe put it out there and make changes and rebid. But again, you only have two people or two companies, Republic and Penn. There's one or two out there, but they're not going to be able to.
Last time we tried Republic to meet bid, they just sent a letter saying why they didn't bid, and that was it.
Yeah, and I received those in the past too, previous employee, where they just said, we're not going to bid, we think you need to change this and this. And at that time we did, and rebid and actually got it. But it can happen. So,
And we haven't been having the problems that we had at the beginning of the year.
no, since our little
With Penn Waste.
discussion,
Yeah.
everything really straight. We've had periodic misses here and there,
That's gonna happen.
but it's going to happen. But for the most part, lately, we have not had the complaints as we did a couple months ago. Questions on refuse revenue?
Oh, well, the water fund and then take a
It'd be
short
nice
break.
if we could get through revenues.
Yeah, let's go ahead, we've got to get through it, so.
Okay. Going into water fund revenues. Unfortunately, the two funds that need increases are back to back here. As we look down through, again, the water use fees, looking in the water system category, we're budgeted at 1.2. The increase that was put into effect for 2021 was $1 on the base amount. When you really do the math on that, you have basically, you're looking at 2,000 customers, so $1 a quarter isn't going to make up the difference that was budgeted from 2020 to 2021. So that 1.2 number is definitely significantly low. As you can see, what we're estimating for 2021, which is more in the lines of about $960,000. So again, what we looked at is, and if you'd like to jump back, we can, but in
Yeah.
appendix, page 6, appendix page 6, breaks out the utility fee summaries. So in the water category, we're looking about 2012 customers. On average, those customers are using 10,500 gallons. So the current average, again, quarterly charge is around $117.50. What we're proposing is a base increase of $8 per quarter. As well as an increase in the overage charge to make up the difference that's needed to properly fund the balance. Yeah, that would be, it would be $8 per quarter on the flat rate and an additional $1 per 1,000 over the 5,000 base amount.
Isn't that what we have now? $1 over the base?
It would be a $1 increase, I'm sorry.
More, so it would
Yes.
be $2 per thousand.
No, right now it's, I believe it's $11 per 1,000 over 5,000, so it'd be $12.
Okay, 12, okay.
So that would take, we would go on the current average charge, would go from $117.50 a quarter to $131.50.
Now, help me out a second. I don't know what I'm missing, but 2021 budget was 1653, and we came in at 1649 is what the expenditures were budgeted. And then the total estimate for 21 at year end is we've got 1.8 and we're at 2.3. Okay, all right, I got
Your
you.
general
Yeah.
obligation there.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Sorry, I flipped that.
No, it's okay, it's good to match them up. So even at that increase, you can see that we're just over $1 million estimated revenue.
So, like an average family of 4, what's the impact going to be to them? Do you know that?
Well, an average family of 4 is probably gonna use more than 10,500 gallons on it. But if you're looking at the average person, it's about $13 more a quarter.
Per person?
No,
No.
per household.
Okay.
About, yeah.
$52 more a year.
Right. Okay.
Questions on the water fund revenue? What you see there in 392, the interfund operating transfers, that's pulling the money that was deposited into the general fund for the ARPA money, putting it into the water fund to pay out for the South 3rd Street water main replacement project. So again, we're showing that as an expense in the general fund and a revenue in the water fund. And there again, we have the balance of the loan proceeds from the 2021 general obligation note to pay for the slider tank replacement. Help pay for the slider
Yeah.
tank replacement.
Why don't you, everybody should know about that. Why don't you, don't want to do it, would you rather I did it? They can,
Because they do shoot the messenger.
Yeah, yeah, everybody heard that, right? Don't shoot the messenger. So, through the whole general obligation note process that was pretty much started when I came on board, there was a verbal price for the slider tank replacement that was given. And that's what the number that was figured during the general obligation note borrowing. I recently asked Bucart Horn if they prepared a budget estimate, opinion of probable cost for that slider tank. They indicated they had not, so I asked them to prepare one. A full proposal, not just for the tank and the installation, but for all the site work and permitting and piping and everything that goes into that.
Taking down the old tank.
Taking down the old tank. They provided that, I received that last week. At this time, the budget estimate with all contingencies, and I'll come back to that, is right at 3.9 million. Which is about double, over double what was verbally, I don't even want to say committed, but spoken, verbally mentioned at the time. So looking at that number though, there's about 20%, which is close to $700,000 in contingency. So there's a 10% contingency, and then there's a 10% COVID contingency based on material availability of materials and labor and everything else that has to do with COVID and its impact. So that brings it down to 3.2. There's other things in there that I think we can look at, but that's the actual tank delivered and installed is about a little over 2.4 million, which again is higher than
The 1.9.
well, the 1.9. So, you know, you're looking at about $600,000, $700,000 in tear down and site work and things. That's a little bit more realistic. So those contingencies are throwing that number pretty much through the roof. I will say, with regards to the FEMA and PEMA have money available after Hurricane Ida. PEMA, I believe, was allocated $70 million from FEMA to spend on hazard mitigation. So I have submitted 3 different applications for intent to funding, one of those being the slider tank replacement. And basically it's hazard mitigation because potential drought and water supply issues and water quality issues. So I put in $3.9 million as the request for intent to fund. So I think we have other outlets to look at that we can help bridge the gap between the funds that we have available right now and this inflated cost. So I'll keep on looking for other funding opportunities, but in the meantime, I'm going to pursue the federal money, which I think has a good chance.
Is that an all or nothing, or can they come back and say like, okay, we're not gonna give you this, but we will give you this?
Yes. Yeah, I asked for 2.9, but they can come back and say we'll give you
That's
more.
why I'm just saying, I didn't know if it was like an all or nothing, or if they could modify what they send back.
They will, yeah, they most likely will. Because what they'll do is they'll look at all their funding requests, and then they'll prioritize, and then they'll basically come up with a percentage and fund more projects partially.
Does our fire hydrant water come out of all the tanks, or is it just? I'm just.
We're still using that
Yeah.
tank up there, right?
Yes, yeah,
But we can take it offline and we'll still have pressure at the fire hydrants.
Yeah, you
Yeah, but I'm
got
just saying,
750,000,
add
right?
that to
yeah,
Oh, I see, you're saying.
Tank is
use that
a,
as a-
750.
for emergency use.
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we can have
Sorry.
that.
Yeah, the new tank is 750, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, we use average consumption, 250,000 a day ballpark, so you got 3 days worth of storage in it, just a new tank.
Just
The big one,
Right, a new one.
Okay.
Right.
but we're still able to use this one currently for how long?
Well, I think Donnie can, I mean,
Well,
we are having some water quality issues with that tank, so
I guess
that's
what I'm
trying,
trying to say is, can we put it off and see if prices don't come back down, like lumber has? It's kind of come back down. You know, if you're looking at steel, is that steel coming from China? And, you know, sitting on a ship someplace, and, you know, so the prices are going through the roof.
Yeah, and I think,
If we hesitate a little,
I think that the opportunity is there for that. What we have to keep in mind, though, if you do need to borrow additional funds, if things do come back, then the price, the interest rates will go up too. So you might actually wash, if you do need to borrow. The hope at this point is that we can come up with other ways to match funds to get the project.
I think we just continue down the road we're going now, trying to get the PEMA funds, and,
that'd be nice.
and then if worse comes to worse, we could look at, and we could take the tank offline and still have water for everybody, so we could wait a little bit, you know, if we needed to.
The thing you have to consider is that the tank has maintenance issues inside.
I'm sorry?
There's maintenance issues inside the tank, like in the
Oh,
next
yeah.
year or two, you have to,
Right,
if you're looking at
You're looking-
repainting and.
right.
Draining and painting, and what would that cost be?
Right.
Oh, yeah, you don't wanna,
You
there's
don't wanna
no,
fool with that?
well, no, because if you repair a tank that you're gonna throw away anyway, it's just the cost. Yeah, you
That,
know,
You're wasting money.
yeah.
and that, the tank that was selected, maybe not the cheapest tank, you can get a painted steel tank that might be cheaper, but every so often, we're gonna take it out of service, sandblast it, paint it. Pretty significant expense. These tanks have got a fused glass coating on them and stainless steel edges on the panels, and corrosion not supposed to be an issue, and so there really is minimal maintenance with them, and that's one reason it was selected, not because it was the most expensive one, obviously, but it does have an advantage over painted steel tanks.
Good. Anything else? Just jump in, or is anyone need a quick break?
It's up to you.
I'm good.
I'm hot.
Is it me? Yeah, it is a little warm.
You hot?
Discuss what
Go ahead and turn your.
just keep it November 8th, what's the schedule?
If you want to schedule it, I think probably would be a good idea to schedule a continuation meeting. Yeah. They can ask them.
But it can be any time.
Yeah, we're probably gonna have to have a continuation meeting so we can keep the budget process going. There's some talk about having it earlier in the day. I don't know how many people we would be able to get if we had it at, what time were you saying?
Yeah, I can file that for work. I could be here, let's say 3, go, you're here at 3 PM is early.
Yeah, but that would mean probably a lot of people wouldn't be able to. Raise your hand if you could make a 3 o'clock meeting. Start the people that are here. Okay, well, that's actually a pretty good number. Yeah. It wouldn't be for any other business other than the budget, so.
It's a good idea.
What do you think?
Great.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
What day?
I don't know, I didn't get that far.
Sorry.
We'll make it the 25th, it's a week away. '25th,
What time?
Johnny? Keeper of the calendar.
What time did you say?
3 o'clock on the 25th.
Oh, no, there's a police finance committee meeting that night. What I have in my
Budget to
calendar.
budget.
Budget to budget,
Yeah.
need a break in between. Well, I mean, I wouldn't think that we need to go more than an hour.
That's at 4 o'clock.
Hour and a half. Oh, it's good at 4 o'clock, okay.
Do you wanna? Wednesday?
Wednesday, the 27th at 3 o'clock. Okay, any objections? Audience? Okay, so we'll go 3 o'clock, Wednesday, the 27th.
Do you want to take a short recess?
No, we gotta keep going.
Is there anything anyone saw that I can work to prepare differently for the next meeting or in addition to?
No, I thought it went very smoothly. I was, yeah.
It's very detailed, which it should be, and
I like jumping back and forth between income and expenses, but that's fine. I just look myself in the list. I can actually grab
There you
this.
go.
Where is our solicitor? Where is
With
our
the
solicitor?
date change, know what was available. And the one that was going to be available had COVID exposure.
Okay, first up, public comment.
do you want me to dial Inga?
Oh, sure, yeah, go ahead.
Inga had some health issues and she's at home, but she wanted me to call her in to the meeting. Inga, we're starting the other meeting, we're out of budget, so you're here with everybody.
Well, let me just, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, manager, fellow council people, I'm back, so to speak, from the dead. I'm glad to be alive, and I wish you all the best at your meeting this evening.
It's good to hear your voice, Inga, it really is.
Pardon me?
It's very good to hear your voice.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So get on with your meeting. Let's all stay healthy. By the way, we're very well known with our rail trail. A couple of the doctors mentioned that they're interested in investing in it. So that'll be a good thing. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to stay on the line, or are you
No,
going?
I'll just sign off. I
Oh,
just wanted
okay.
to tell everybody, good luck at your meeting. Make New Freedom grow.
Very good. Thanks,
Thanks,
Inga.
Inga.
Stay well.
See you, Inga.
Good night.
Good night.
Inga was just in the hospital for 5 days. She has colon cancer. They're gonna start radiation. So, and she really sounds actually in good spirits, but she sounds a little tired, I think. But
36, I think 36 staples or sutures later, and a couple of good doctors. At one point, they did lose her.
Yeah.
And she
So,
told me the days.
so if everybody
Prayers.
can keep her in your prayers, please. Anyway, public comment? Did somebody? Oh, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question.
Can we get your name and address, please?
Sorry, Betsy Wilson, 106 North 3rd Street. What is the ordinance for RVs and storing them in the borough? Also, how big a structure do you put in your yard to store them?
Isn't she in an HOA?
No, my house is 90 years old, it's not an HOA.
I'm sorry,
No,
are
I'm on
you,
North Third.
you're North Third, sorry.
North Third.
I actually had the same question, so I'm fresh with an answer. I actually didn't think you could park an RV on the street, but you can. And so as long as it's movable, you could even, I didn't think that you could park an RV on the street unless it had something you could move it with attached to it, but that's not true either. You could park it, drop your trailer and drive your truck away and just leave it on the street, which makes it very difficult, especially as we're starting coming into the snow season, right, Donnie?
Right.
You know, so I mean, if you don't have it off the street, it's really,
So what about like people parking them in their driveways or building like massive garages bigger than their house to store them? Is there any ordinance against any of this?
I take it from your tone, you're not the RV owner, you're
I'm
complaining.
about this far away from a 42 by 30 by 19 feet tall pole building that's going in right next to my house.
They did apply for a permit for the pole building?
They did, it's on the agenda. It's on there. And I've spoken to Andrew about it. It is massive.
Right,
And they live in a rancher, so you'll also be able to see it from in front of everybody's houses because it's going to be bigger than their house.
Oh, that's the one on for planning commission
Yeah.
coming up?
no,
Oh,
It's
no.
already,
Oh,
no.
it's already up? How did it get?
Just like our conversation, I told you that they met all regulations in the zoning ordinance. They met the lot coverage, they met the height restriction, they met the setbacks. At this point, the way the zoning ordinance is written, they comply with all the regulations.
Can we do anything going forward? I know it's too late for my view, it's now gone. But in the future, that we don't have these massive industrial structures going up in our neighborhood?
That's really up to council to look at the zoning ordinance and a possible amendment. But I think there's a lot of other things in the zoning ordinance that need addressed along with that. So if there's
Is that something that could be proposed, that somebody can look into it?
that's up to you and that's up to this council to
Is
propose.
anybody willing to look into it? I don't know how you're gonna fit an RV down the alley that goes to this massive structure that's going up. In the first place, they're ripping out neighboring tree roots to do it. I mean, the alley is little, it's only wide enough for one car. So if you need a 42-foot building to put this RV in, how is it gonna get down the street?
Now, it's going up or it is already up? I thought you said it is already up.
No, they're digging out for it right now, so I'm too late.
she's saying that the
It's gonna go.
RV parked in the driveway or where it's going to be is huge.
Well, the building,
But the building.
it's a
that
whole building that's going installed so that the homeowner, the resident, can park the RV inside the building.
What's the house number?
108,
So whose house, who's the?
Kitty's just bought it.
Oh, yeah, I saw something.
But I mean, it's like a little lane behind our house, so I
Yeah, I
have
know.
no idea how a RV that needs 42 feet to park it is gonna get in there.
How can that meet zoning? It has to be a 10-foot setback, 35 or 20 feet off the back, right? And they are.
It's a deep
And they've got a big enough lot that it's taken up.
They proposed the condition as well, and they're still have 2%. They'd be at 28% coverage. And go to 30. Again, I mean, we double checked everything to make sure that it was correct after you and I spoke a couple times, and it double checked everything, had a couple people look at everything, it complies, it meets zoning, it meets setbacks, lot coverage, building coverage.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the issue you're on, when you're in an area that allows the zoning for that, your hands pretty much are tied. Even if it went to the zoning hearing board, they would look at it and say, well, you meet everything, we have to give it to you.
Well, I know it's too late for me, but just so that we don't continue doing it, there are tons of RVs in the Freedom. And this is the second massive structure going up on our street. So I'd like to see, is there something else we can do? We back to boundary. We've got beautiful, well, I do now, but I won't when this 42 feet of siding goes up next to me. I'll be looking at siding instead of my views. So for anybody moving forward that doesn't wanna look at a massive pole building? Would rather move their
If we
views.
wanted to do something, I'm not sure we could.
Really,
If you drop the height, I guess, that would be.
Yeah, I think you need to be careful, because if you try to tweak the zoning ordinance to eliminate this, and somebody wants to put up a large garage sometimes because they got 2 vehicles now, and they wanted a place to put them something now, you eliminate them, or so if you're not, if you're not careful. I mean, there's unintended consequences that are possible.
A garage
I mean,
is
you could
just
still
gonna
let them
be
put up
the
with a garage, it would just be a height requirement.
This
Well,
thing's
that
gonna
might be
be
one
more
way.
than triple my fence, I mean 19 feet high. And the trees are gonna have to go past, they're gonna have to trim those trees unbelievably to get that thing in there.
Well, it's their trees, correct?
No, all the roots they're digging out are for the house right across the alley.
but it's on their property, they're digging on their property.
Oh,
They're
okay.
digging on their property, but the roots are coming from the other side of the alley, which is only the width of the car. So they're probably gonna kill those beautiful trees, ripping all the roots of the trees out, on that side of them. And the trees, I mean, there's no way you're getting some 19 feet under those trees without either taking out those trees or having to do massive cutbacks.
The RV's not 19 feet, that's the peak of the roof is 19 feet.
Well, it's gotta be pretty tall, if you need 19 feet to stick it in there, don't you? I mean, I don't know how tall an RV is.
But the peak of the roof is 19 feet. So you come down from your garage door, it might be 10 or 15 feet.
Why would you need something 19 feet if it's only 10 feet high?
It's the peak of the
They're
roof.
saying that the peak is this high, but really the RV is probably only that high pulling into the garage.
And there's probably an air conditioning unit on the top, so that.
It just, like, if you want to put in a two-car garage, it's understandable, it's residential, but they already have a garage in the driveway, but whatever. They already have a two-car garage, but this thing is massive in the back, and it's gonna just wipe out everybody's view of everything, because it's huge. So it just doesn't seem fair to decrease other people's property value, so you can put an industrial-sized building in next to houses that are 90 years old. Like, I don't wanna live in an industrial park, I wanna live in a historic house.
Yeah.
Or
I
use that
will,
one for views,
let
which
me,
now
let me
gone.
talk, I will talk to Wade in the morning and see, because I haven't read the zoning, but I know what we're talking about, but that particular spot. So let me talk to him, but I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, a car, or a garage to suit a car is fine. Of course, if somebody wants a garage for their cars, it's not gonna be 19 feet tall and 42 feet long. That's understandable, but what's going in on our street now, this is the second one, they're ugly, they're huge.
Well, I don't know if you heard or not, but 3 of us up here said we could possibly limit height.
That would help,
That would be the thing that we would be able to do, I think.
okay.
Is that a unique?
Has he already got permits?
Well, we couldn't do it for him, because it's all,
Yeah,
once you
it's already
apply
done
for
for us.
something, it's a done deal, as long as you meet the requirements. But we could for future, we could say, we're gonna, it would probably make sense to have it conforming to the surrounding structures at least.
I mean, yeah, and so I've seen, if you go a street inside, somebody has one like that, it's large, but they don't have it in the garage, they've got to cover the whole thing, so if it's a registered vehicle, right, it's got a plate on it, you can put it in the driveway, if they want to put a cover on it, they want to put it in the backyard, put a cover on it, I mean, it's not in a garage, but it's covered, I don't know if we can do a whole lot about that, if it's registered, got a plate on it.
Well, yeah, that's what they said about parking on the street even. If it's registered, has a plate, there's really not anything.
Yeah.
Well, Shrewsbury's in the middle right now of proposing an ordinance just for this for RVs and people living in RVs. How long can you stay in an RV if somebody comes to visit you for the holidays? I know a lot of people over there weren't allowed, but this was because of HOAs, to keep their RVs on their property, and they were storing off-site,
Sure, yeah.
But I can take a look at what their ordinance is. They haven't adopted it, but I can get a copy of the proposal if we think that might
Yeah, we can take a look at it.
help us.
This isn't really storage per se, it's building a building. I mean, it doesn't matter, I mean, if he wanted to grow plants inside and he put up a building like that, I mean, it doesn't really matter the use, it's just the size.
True. Well, yeah,
So, yeah.
but is height the issue there and not length? I mean,
I think you're mostly concerned about the height because it's blocking the view.
all right, but if I have like a 12-foot by 19-foot two-story shed, how much view is really being blocked there? It's the 42 feet long that's blocking all the view at 19 feet. Otherwise, it'd just be a little bit of an eyesore.
Well, you're not going to change lot coverage. I mean, that's just not something that we can do. You can have 30% lot coverage when you make an addition or a garage or an outbuilding or a shed or whatever. We can limit the height.
Yeah, and you start changing the lot coverage, you could possibly end up with a bunch of non-conforming lots all of a sudden because.
Yeah, that's
some-
true.
you have them.
Yeah, so we can't really change lot coverage, but we could change the height.
I'm not talking about changing lot coverage, I'm saying that the height doesn't seem like the biggest issue here. Having a 42-foot by 19 building is, he's not gonna be able to get in there. 42 feet, he's gonna
Your
kick rocks
garage
in
is
the
on
mud.
either end, too,
Okay.
so I don't know
I
how
mean,
it's gonna clear
it
the-
really, we can't argue
Yeah.
whether or not he's gonna be able to fit it in.
Yeah, no, the fact that it's
It's-
19 feet tall is trivial. 19 feet tall. A house can be 19 feet tall if it has 2 stories, easy. But 42 feet by 19, that's where you start running an issue. Where do you see around that? You can't.
Well, and can another outbuilding be bigger than the house on the lot? That seems odd, too.
No, it can be, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I'll go ahead and I'll talk to Wade and see if we can address something in the zone.
Okay, thank you.
Is that a historic district up there, is there any special zoning up there?
No.
It's just Third Street. Anything else? Okay. Approval of minutes from last month.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from last month.
Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any questions on the minutes? Comments? All in favor? Opposed? My vote is aye. Treasurer's report?
Before there's any questions, I know, Mr. Mayor, you requested that kind of there be a summary at the front there. I did add that this time,
Yes,
hopefully
thank
that helps. I
Very
did
nice.
not break each subcategory out for revenues and expenditures, just the high-end ones, I guess, most commonly used, so hopefully that helps even those in the public get a better handle on.
Yeah, that helps very much, thank you, I appreciate that.
Going forward, this is going to be a lot easier way to address the expenses.
I also just wanted to point out on the delinquency report, it was a little higher this month by a couple thousand. That's just lining up with the delinquency notices going out. So if you would have ran that report a week after going into October, it would have been lower. It's just a matter of matching up the dates.
Who's Amazon Capital Services? I don't remember seeing that before.
That's just for the Amazon business account that's shared, so all the employees can log in, and then I have to approve the purchases for materials, equipment. John will order the treatment plant, John will order.
Is that new? That's-
Yeah. a couple
Okay,
months, yeah.
I looked it up and I thought that's what it was, but I don't remember
Everything
seeing it
from
before.
pens to gloves to chairs to pretty much anything.
It's called Leaf, L-E-A-F.
That was so that is the old copier lease. When we got the, when we got the new lease, Dacio paid off, gave us a check to pay off the existing lease. And what we do is just make those monthly payments. So the old machine
Okay,
is
so we're
actually
just-
returned and gone, but we're still making those payments because
they
Dacio
they
paid us.
reimbursed us. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I actually have two copier payments, but balances out.
Yeah,
We have the revenue
because of the
offset.
extra money. Ghosttext.com, isn't that one a couple?
That's IT services.
Okay. What kind of IT services, just in general? or-
Everything, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much all from networking to computer setup to monitoring, everything for switching over from the analog system to voice over IP. He helped to manage all that to make sure it went smoothly.
Okay.
It was the server switch out as well.
Okay. Now, is that gonna be like a regular monthly type fee, or is this
That
kind
is
of
not a
like a lot of
managed
stuff?
service. That was just a lot of getting everything.
That was a
yeah.
lot of upfront, okay. And I think the last question I had was the CIA. I'm assuming the large one was the purchase of the camera, but then there's another item for $180.
No, it is not, and I don't know if, Mr. President, you want to address that, since we talked about that?
On the CIA alarm system. Yeah, that actually, I'd have to jump, I guess.
I don't know, well, it's a done deal, so.
Well, it was a replacement for, I mean, the $28,000 was a replacement for our alarm system. Our alarm system, due to age, I guess,
Yeah,
just
good.
basically
Okay.
failed. So in order to get the alarm system back up online, they were here for a week and a half or better, just trying to get the wires through and, yeah, so that $28,000 was for the alarm system itself, and we all have now a completely new alarm system. The locks have all been keyed, we have new fobs and all that.
Yeah, this isn't 20, this is 25, unless there's a,
No,
it was 25?
yeah,
Alright.
that's fire and access and complete, right? And the problem with the system that was here is it was specific, so you could not,
With black box technology?
you could not replace the,
There were no parts.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't get the parts.
Antiquated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obsolete, yeah. Okay.
Why was that divided into general, water, and sewer funds?
Because it really affects all of them. Usually if it's for the building.
Because they have their own independent, sewer has their own independent system, correct?
At their plan, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so why would we,
Because the office is administrating sewer fund, basically, just like the water fund.
okay.
Administration fund, yeah.
It's like, it's split out, it's a shared expense.
Okay, I just thought if, since it was this building, it should go to general fund for here.
I would
I
kind
guess
of,
it doesn't matter, it's just out of one pocket and into the other.
yeah, I mean, they're different, kind of the way that we view it is even if you buy a ream of paper, we split it 3 ways because we're using it for those different purposes.
Quick question on the 9/19 concert. Did we pay, the borough pay for that?
No, that was actually that was a donation from Gemcraft.
Gemcraft.
And actually, I had a question on that, but the donation was $1,500, and they paid $1,000 for the concert, and the other $500 went.
For concert expense, I mean, there was porta potty rental and some supplies.
So that picked up that, okay. Yeah, so that was paid for by Phil Robinson, actually, from Gemcraft.
But unless I'm reading it wrong, it shows it's an expense on us.
Well, the money came in a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we just transferred through, okay.
Money and money out.
We just don't show the revenue coming in, it's, okay.
Yeah,
Well, we did a couple of months ago.
Okay, all right. York County SPC, I'm sorry, were you finished? York County SPCA, I don't remember us authorizing what do you call it?
Donation?
No, it's not a donation, we have it listed under the new budget as an animal control officer. Is that what that's for?
No, it's not animal control officer. That's for your, basically municipal contract that's reoccurring every year. And that was done for this
Just
year's-
happen to be due now?
Yeah, basically, they bill at the end of the year for the upcoming year, and what that allows is the residents of New Freedom service through the SPCA, so if there is a stray, they can take it there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole sheet that I can send out, that all the services, but that was just a rollover of that existing contract.
But they don't have anything to do with foxes?
No, no foxes.
No foxes.
Is that something that people need to know about, or it's just when you go there, you tell them where you're from, and then they look up and know that you're eligible for services?
We can, yeah, I mean, we could definitely put something out,
Savvy citizen?
savvy on the
I've
website.
I've never known that,
I didn't know that either.
yeah.
And Lord knows if you're on that neighborhood thing, every other day, there's 12 animals that somebody lost or is looking for, and
Yeah. So find somebody.
find Toby or.
Find Toby, that was,
Better
yeah.
finding an animal than your kid,
Yeah, true.
might look really bad if you post you lost your kid. You're looking for.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? My vote is aye. Okay, President's report. We already talked, oh, no, we didn't talk about that. Okay, first thing, Mr. Mayor brought up something today. We had talked about, I don't know, a couple months ago, about setting up a spending limit so that if Andy needs to do whatever, that he can, make an expense, it's basically an expense limit, I guess you'd call it. So, 5,000, 10,000, whatever we decide to make it, we need to pass a resolution. So I'm not asking us to discuss it tonight, but what I'm asking is that to bring it up and you think about it, and that we'll put it on the agenda under the new rules, the agenda for next month. And,
Is there a limit that's an understood limit already?
not really. I mean, the way the borough code is written, like for instance, the $25,000 for the alarm system, I mean, that was kind of an emergency situation, and since it was a replacement of already existing equipment, it was just done. And I agree with that. I don't have any problem with that at all. But there are gonna be some times whenever, I don't know, you could pick almost anything. Let's say pickleball came and they wanted to put in a new court, and it was gonna cost $8,000. Well, that shouldn't just be done without it coming to council and being voted on. It should go through rec, it should go through council, and then we should come to a decision. So I don't know what that number is. I mean, I think it's somewhere between 5 and 10 in my head. Do you have an experience on what it's been in the past in other areas, or?
I don't, but I can find out.
Yeah, maybe that would be a good thing to do too, is just to figure out what's normal. So, yeah, why don't we do that? If you could come back with a recommendation, and that
And
would,
I think that should be done by resolution with the
Yeah.
policy so that it's recorded.
I have, as part of my president's report, I went to the cowboy thing this weekend, and basically all of South Front Street was taken up, and the whole municipal parking lot was taken up, and I actually had a hard time getting into the municipal parking lot. I didn't tell them I was a borough manager or anything, but I had a hard time getting in, so.
President.
They took your job,
President.
not the manager.
Yeah, present, sorry, it was a joke, mayor's badge got me. It was off the cuff. But anyway, so I'm thinking about all the residents on South Front Street. I mean, they basically have a carnival situation every weekend. And the mayor and I talked about it this afternoon, actually, and you really wouldn't want that. I mean, Carnival comes and you're a week and you don't have parking for a week, or you have to park in your yard for a week, that's okay, but every weekend, there's something going on with the train, and it's gonna, now that COVID is coming to a close, hopefully, that's gonna happen more and more. So what I did was I made this up. This says residential parking only, violators will be towed / ticketed at owner's expense, and it says per ordinance 2021 - whatever our next ordinance number is. And what I would like to do, or what I would propose to do, or make a motion to do, is to have these signs made up and put on South Front Street. Not with the intent, and actually the agenda item says parking permits. I don't think we want to get into trying to have permits, how many do you give a family, et cetera, that kind of thing. But if we just put residential parking only, then the residents would have to be, it would basically be up to the residents to say, well, these are all Maryland tags sitting here and I can't bring my groceries in. I can't take my baby into my house because I have to park somewhere else to get them to the front door.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, I know in West York, they have the same problem when they have the fair. You know, they have
Right.
parking permits in West York. But how will the police enforce this? I mean, in terms of knowing it's a resident or not a resident? Because there's a lot of, face it, a lot of people have Maryland registration on cars and live in the borough.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the
Can there
other,
be a sticker or something? I don't know how expensive it would be. And they come into the borough and they pick up a sticker, they show their driver's license with their address, and
well, here's the different problems. First problem, some of those houses have 5 drivers.
Oh.
Well, they do. We have like one house has maybe 3 different generations living in it. And there's, I mean, and with COVID and unemployment, I mean, that is becoming common. So you don't want to tell people that they can't park for their own house.
But they're a resident, so they would get a sticker,
They would get a sticker, yeah.
every person that lives there.
Yeah, well, we could add, I had the line on here for a long time that said residential parking only, and underneath it, by permit only. Violators will be ticketed, towed. So you could say by permit underneath of it.
Are we gonna get the same thing we got before with the tennis court? Because there weren't signs at every door, we can't enforce it.
No, I think if you have them 10 feet apart, I think you could, or you could add from here to corner, or this block.
So the resident would have to call the police and complain, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
But at least it gives them, you're not going to have someone who comes to the train who are going to park on South Front Street, get in to take the train ride, and have the train people tell them, you can't park on South Front Street, they're going to go back and move it. They're not going to move it. You have to have something to tell them that they can't park there now. They do this.
How big could you make this sign? Could you put, you're welcome to use our municipal lot?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you could put that, sure.
It's
Yeah,
hard to
or
get that
use
lot full.
municipal
That takes a
parking
lot.
available,
A little bit
or,
clearer.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, we could do that.
Maybe that was, well, where else are we supposed to park? Well, right
Right.
here it tells you.
Right, municipal parking,
On
one
the
block
corner,
on
high in
left.
front. Whatever.
So would the people in Franklin Street be able to get something like that too?
Well, see, that's always a question. That is actually another problem. But those are businesses where people are using it for short term. I don't know. It's something to think about.
But Dave, where's the parking issue at? Is it the lower end of Franklin?
Yeah, down by 7 and the cigar place and Bonkies and, I mean, Bonkies is only seasonal, but the others weren't,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere from the tracks to Constitution.
Wow, you do residential parking there, Bonky's business will go.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Not to mention 7, because 7 lost a lot across the street. Those people, that's tough. And that's
Well, I know, but you got
business.
residents
That's a
that have the
business
same
area,
hardship as you
right?
do on Front Street.
Yeah, it's definitely
That's
business.
his own business. So is Franklin's, Franklin's central business.
Yeah.
Those houses on Franklin, like the garages behind them.
Some,
Well, some do, some don't.
the same, well, some of them on Front Street have garages in the back too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing you could do too is on, in some areas of the town, depending on what kind of business it is, like you could say 15-minute business parking, 15-minute max, 20-minute max business parking, something like that.
How long does it take for a woman to go get her hair done?
I don't think that's-
3 hours. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, you think it takes 5 minutes to place your other people in
When they
Boston
had
for an
the,
hour.
Yeah, Donnie?
when they had the cowboy days down there, weren't they using the parking lot though?
They were, yeah.
So now you don't,
But
yeah,
it
so
was
now you
also
don't
a
have the,
reduced
now
capacity.
people can't park in the lot though.
Well, yeah, you had a problem, they said you can't park here, you have to go up to Summit
Yeah.
Grove and take the bus.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you said about putting on the signs about using municipal parking, when you're having someone else use the parking lot,
Well, some of the municipal parking lot was open, and they also had people directing traffic. So at that point, they could say, you could park over here and wait for the shuttle. Shuttle will be along in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the schedule was, so. Yeah, there's no cure to any of this. I mean, parking, well, I had rental units. Parking was like the biggest prize. I mean, everybody, that was the biggest complaint.
well, for the cowboy, I mean, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but with this cowboy days, is there a reason why they have to use the parking lot, why they can't use the playground?
Good question.
No, they should, I think they probably should have used the playground.
Yeah,
The
but I
prob-
think
the
they're using
problem
it
there
because it's
is-
closer to the trail of the tracks.
That's a long way.
Well, it's not just a long way, if, you don't know what the weather's gonna be like. And we have all seen, you saw what happened down there with a truck pulling through the grass and you got ruts. Imagine 150 cars parked down there and we've
Well, no,
had
don't
problems
use the
with it
playground
too,
for cars.
pulling
I'm
through the
saying have them
stones
have their
and.
events there on the playground. Whatever they had, their tents and everything they had set up in that parking lot, move that over to the playground, let the cars park in the parking lot.
Right, exactly,
That's a good idea.
yeah.
Limit that. Because
That would just
they
be part-
really didn't even ask us, did they?
No, there was no permission given. What they did was they put in a band area, they put in booths, there were probably 4 or 5 different booths. They put in Gill Ice was there, now Gill Ice would probably have to be on the parking lot, or they could have been on the other side. But, yeah.
Lila thought you said booze, and she said I missed it.
Gill Ice.
She got missed it. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that, and make them be in
Yeah.
park.
So anyway, so my motion is to put residential parking only signs up on South Front Street. Is it gonna create a problem on other streets? Absolutely, but I think we need to do something, we need to take some kind of action. I mean, right now, we're growing businesses, which is really great, but there's a lot of people that don't have garages, and they need a place to park too. And anytime you tell them they can't park in front of their house, you're telling them, carry your baby down the street, your groceries, you know, how do you get all that stuff there? So, and then I guess you could say we're gonna add by permit underneath only.
What do you think about that? Is that gonna be an expense or a problem to get a sticker?
You're asking me?
No, well.
I think you could just do a card. I mean, you could do a card that's signed by Andy Schaefer, or
What, stick it on
just put it on the dash.
dash?
Yeah.
How legally binding is this?
If it's an ordinance, it's,
Yeah, so
Do it on a trial basis, is that what you're saying?
No, not a trial basis, but does this put us in violation of any other like state, because this is a public street?
it's not a state road though.
May
Oh,
not.
wait a minute, that is a state road.
I already checked, and there's no, I mean, one of the things we were worried about before was the impact of the liquid fuels tax, and there is none.
check municipal services road. Yeah, I mean,
Don't they have to approve any signs though that are put up on the state road?
in a borough, you're responsible for the signage.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think if we put residential parking only by permit, other words here, and then put at the bottom, municipal lot, 1 block.
Something like
And
this.
this would just be the side of the block with the houses, not the side of the block with even in history.
Well, that's
There-
the-
Well, yeah, there's only there's only
Yeah,
parking
I
on
was
one
saying,
side.
There is no parking going down towards Front Street.
Right.
I'll bet you.
Now, question back,
I'm
but
sorry, go ahead.
Why don't we just try the sign first without the permit and see if that does away with some of the parking on the street?
We could. We'd have to get the signs remade, but.
Well, I was gonna say, yes.
You're gonna have to get the permits
I'm
and the
telling you
signs.
what's gonna happen, somebody's gonna call the police, and the police are gonna say, wait a minute, this is public parking, we can't do
Yeah.
anything.
so basically what has to happen is, as your sign says here, you do need an ordinance.
Right.
So basically, if council desires, you would need to make a motion tonight to draft an ordinance to bring to the November meeting to restrict parking along that side.
Right. That's what I was trying
Street
to.
and in that block to residential permit parking only. At that time, so what that does is, give myself authorization to work with Solicitor Jones to
Right.
draft the ordinance to bring back in November. Then in November, you would authorize advertisement, if you like it, December adopt.
Right.
But in that ordinance, it would have to outline what the procedure is, it would have to outline what the penalty is. So that's what gives you the authority, I guess, to enforce.
And this is for 7 days a week, right? This is not a weekend or a weekday?
Well, yeah,
Yeah, it should be, because they.
You might as well.
operate during the week.
And so if you're visiting there, okay, so you got a plate that's from Maryland, like half the town, I guess, but if you park there, you're a visitor, but you don't have a sticker, is that gonna, where's the
Well, that's why I think we need to be liberal with stickers. I mean, I think, that's why I said make it a card that you can put in the dash. So whenever Aunt Sally goes to visit the grandkids, you hand her a sticker, and she tosses it on the dash.
Yeah, I mean, because it could happen, you have a visitor, and then, it's not much of a welcome if you're a visitor and you get whacked with a ticket for parking there.
Sure.
For every house on Front Street though, they all have access to the alley in the back also, right? Every single one of them.
That's true, yes.
So they do have potential parking back there.
Not really. All the buildings pretty much are right up against the street, so I think you
I think
could
he's
probably
saying,
have
how many of them have some additional parking in the back or a
Not
garage?
Some
not
do.
all of them do. They're like the old library.
Yeah.
That doesn't butt up to
The old library does,
alley.
but the ones that are on,
The vast
past that alley
majority,
all the
yes.
way to my street, to High Street, all have parking, and most of them park there.
Is that private property back behind the library, now that you broke that up, or is that?
I don't know about behind the library.
There's a parking lot
You
right
know,
there.
you guys know what I mean?
There's a parking lot
There
there,
used
there's
to
a
be
whole
the
bunch of
pub,
people parking.
used to be the old pub insurance, now I'm going back.
That belongs to the pub building.
But it's a parking lot.
Yeah, is that private or public? Who owns that? Donnie? Donnie, do you own
The
that?
guy that owns Pubs Insurance Building, Doyle, that's their lot.
It is?
Well, yes.
They could make some money during carnival and during,
Well, actually, the people that are in that, since they have to put all the apartments in that building, that's where all these people
that's
park.
where they park. Okay. Wow.
Would they need a sign too?
Well, he probably has signs there, doesn't he?
They did have signs up.
So-
Tenant parking only or something?
Yeah, so, I made a motion. Any interest? We want to go ahead and have the solicitor draft something to go with our sign.
I'll second that, I mean, we can.
What?
We should probably restate that motion, just for the record.
Okay, well, you actually said it, like, so why don't you?
Or pass the gavel and have somebody else do it.
Okay, I make a motion that we prepare a resolution for consideration at next month's meeting for residential parking only on South Front Street. And then we can review the resolution that we get from the solicitor. Or else-
With his, should we get his input before we go to the trouble of having him draft it?
Well, you're gonna talk to him, right? This
Yeah,
actually.
so what
lets
do you think
Andy-
about this is what we're
Right,
looking at
right, yeah,
doing, and
yeah,
if he
yeah.
says, you can't do that.
Right, yeah, we're not
Bring it back
gonna,
without
we're not gonna do it in the
paying
vacuum.
the draft on ordinance.
Right, yeah,
That's what I think. I think if we okay it, that way he
right.
can start.
Andy will talk to him, and if he says, you're not allowed, you'll never get away with that, then obviously.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, yeah. Did anyone have, I noticed somebody had their hand up before, go ahead.
I was just saying, could Steve in the history put on their website where the appropriate parking is?
I think they've actually been, do they have it on there now?
I'm sure they'll work with us.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm sure they will. I mean, they're not gonna want their people to come for tickets.
Yes, what's her name?
I also put it out on
Yeah, Rachel.
Rachel?
Rachel.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they would
Yeah,
help
I
us
think-
out with that.
Put it in their GPS.
I can even go down and talk to
To
Rachel.
Rachel,
and see what's.
see if they,
Well, they're not gonna be in favor of this.
Probably not.
Probably not.
well, but they're in favor of us,
Yeah.
letting them use our parking lot and our,
Yeah.
And getting a third
park.
back on their tax.
and not
Yeah.
charging them, and and getting the
Should.
money back, from the amusement tax.
Have a first and second.
Second, yeah.
Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye.
I have a follow-up question about the Cowboy weekend and then moving, reducing, some of the parking. It looked like some of the railroad ties were damaged. I don't know if that was from cars bumping into them or if it was because of them being moved.
We
but
did
I'll-
move some for
Okay.
them, like we did for their planes, trains, and automobiles that they had a
Okay.
couple months ago.
All right.
So I don't know if that's,
It just looked like some of the ties were cracked in half, and I don't know if there's people bumping into them.
okay.
Cars, maybe just like normal use. not
I'll
malicious
check.
or
Was that
anything like
because though they don't use that part of the track very often? They
No,
move
no, no,
to
in
pick
the
up.
parking lot, the parking lot.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, the parking
And
lot.
then another question is, the portion that they blocked off is usually handicapped parking.
That's true,
I don't think they allocated any additional parking closer to where they were doing the, events.
That's true, yeah.
I think they're easy to work with. If we have a conversation with them, I think they'll be willing to understand and come forward with us and
Yeah.
ask us, don't you
It-
think?
it might
Oh,
be
yeah, yeah, I don't think this is gonna be a
Great.
controversial thing. I mean, I just think that we need to allow, we just need to allow for the citizens. I mean, that's really the whole purpose of this. It's not to, I've loved trains all my life. I've been on the train 8 times. So yeah, but I just think the citizens need a place to park.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that doesn't get lost in the shuffle for the next time.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I think Andy will remember that. Okay. Next up, Mr. Mayor, we'll start with the police report.
That's all you have?
That's all I have.
Well, you have a police report. I
I'm
think,
not allowed to
from the
say
month
anything because
before.
of the new agenda for it.
Well, sure you can. You're just making a report. You're not. Donna, I think, had a report to me.
So, right, in September, because of that one storm, they pushed back that meeting, so we actually met after the September meeting. So these are really notes from the September continuation meeting that you guys haven't heard. It's just a couple of things that the chief had passed along that I thought you guys might be interested in. So Officer Saylor was patrolling in Stewartstown one evening, and he smelled smoke, and he found a fire at the smokehouse. And he did, use his fire extinguisher, and then the fire department arrived. So, they credited him with helping to get that under control. He got an attaboy for that. And then the chief went over a 2-night period in Shrewsbury, they had a rash of catalytic converter thefts. 16 victims had their catalytic converter stolen. They did an extensive review of the video in the area. They were able to come up with a suspect vehicle of a white Chevy Impala. They were able to focus on the tag. It was a North Carolina tag. They discovered it was a rental car. They then used the GPS tracking that's in the rental car, and they were able to ping the latitude and longitude of all the places this car had been. It had been going all over Maryland, Pennsylvania, other states, stealing catalytic converters. They put out a bolo, and Frederick Police Department actually got the suspects. So they're still working on that case. It's obviously a huge case, but it was good work on the police department's part. And then he did mention on September 19th, we had the armed robbery at the Choice Cigarette Outlet in Shrewsbury. They did post a picture of the suspect, I think, on the crime alert, but the video was pretty bad, and the clerk was so upset that she waited about 15 minutes to call the police after it happened.
Was that the guy that had the mask and the scarf and the sunglasses, and it wouldn't have mattered, he could be
Yeah, it's very,
walking
right,
past
it's
you?
very hard to see,
Yeah,
right, and there was
you couldn't-
no outside video, so they didn't have like a car or anything like that. The chief mentioned that the school board meetings have been very contentious, as is everywhere else. So our officers have been going, MSP, county sheriffs have also sent officers. The school administrators have been receiving email threats, voicemail threats, and if it continued, they have decided they're gonna hold the meetings virtually. So I don't know since then if that has any update to that one. So,
No,
and then-
they're still having them in person, they have one this Thursday this week.
yeah, so I mean, I guess that was gonna be if it got worse. Did you want me to talk about the budget at all?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
You
so,
did that.
the chief did go over the incidents. I wasn't at the last meeting, because I was quarantining, but the chief is expected every year to give us the 3-year total of incidents to figure out our PPUs. So he had 2018, all of 2018, all of 2019, all of 2020, and he did up to September 11th, 21. So we have the totals for each of the 4 municipalities, and that resulted in slight tweaks to the PPUs. Our PPUs are currently 15.17. We're going up to 15.74. So it's really like a 31.1% of the calls for service, or ours is increased to 32.3%. Everybody else's went down slightly. Glen Rock's only went from 8.19 to 8.18. Stewartstown went down a little more, and so did Shrewsbury. So the Finance Committee did meet a few weeks ago, October 4th. Gail still does not have the state pension aid numbers. She just puts in the number that she used for last year. So prior to last year, she had anticipated 126,000. We actually got 134,300. That's the number she's putting in for this year. The actuary for the health insurance told her that he expects an 8 to 10% increase in that. An 8% increase would be about another 25,000, so I think she's using that number. The workers' comp, I think, is a $7,000 increase is an estimate, but she's still waiting on that number. And then we just discussed some of the vehicles. We need to replace Detective Schaefer's vehicle. He has a 2008 vehicle. It is a detective vehicle, so it doesn't have all of the full equipment that a regular patrol car would have. We're due to replace 2 cars in 2023. So to get ahead of that, we're going to do $50,000 next year to help with that. The fuel prices have gone up, so that's going to lead to another increase. And then there's a few items that they put in there for capital expenditures, but that would come out of our reserves. So she really doesn't want any estimate out there because she worries about these numbers coming in. But I believe the estimate you showed me was pretty spot on, I think.
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna have to up what we have in our budget. What did you use, 5%? I think to be on the safe side, we should probably go anywhere from 8 to 10% to be on the safe side.
Well, like
over last year.
The majority of the budget is the contract salaries. I mean, so you can't
We're
change that.
3.5% increase.
Right.
Just with
Right.
that.
But then you add in longevity and overtime, so Gail is estimating about 4% for salaries. But, she's not really doing much above 5% for what she thinks the total.
But our PPU usage
That'll go up a little
over the
bit.
3 years has escalated a little bit, which is gonna mean we're gonna be assigned more PPUs and somebody's gonna be assigned less. Therefore, Bruce, as you know, the more PPUs you use, the higher your annual. So I think maybe we should look at 8% in that. Yeah.
As far as getting I understand that they're always waiting on numbers, and I get that situation too, but if that process can start earlier in the year, I think that would be be beneficial to municipalities so that we get.
Always said that.
We're going through that, now that, I mean, I'm gonna do an IGA report, but that's the bulk of my IGA report. We can't get figures because they only come out with an audit every 2 years. On, like the, what is it, PMRS?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
which is our long-term obligations, you know, so when we try to figure out with IGA what your long-term obligation should be that you pay and how long you pay it, there is no figure that you could come up with. And you can't come back to somebody 2 years later. That's part of the problem there with, and maybe it's because of who they use. I don't know. Does that make a
I mean, getting
difference?
your numbers, waiting on that pension aid to come in and waiting on your health insurance, they have Benecon, right? I think.
Yeah.
It is tough, but it would be nice to get a little closer, maybe on some of the other numbers earlier on, that it would help our, I mean, you know, we're still in draft form, but.
But there are other places that are not in draft form. They're ready to pass it, and that's part of a problem. And I've said that, you know, you can't expect us to wait on you if you're not gonna start your finance committee meetings until the end of September. You know, and that's a problem that I have. September, then you have a meeting, and you don't pass it till November, and we're trying to get ours finalized, and we don't know. We don't know. It's not really fair to the municipalities. And I'm gonna say this, when you stop and consider Glen Rock, you never know what's gonna happen if something happens there, it's a major increase. You know, we worked things out last year, thank goodness, you know, without them withdrawing.
But when you and I spoke today, though, you said that pretty much Glen Rock's locked in for at least 2 years, right?
They
So
are
we
locked,
shouldn't
they
go
are
through
locked in.
that.
If they already missed their, isn't it,
It's October.
the end of October? So they can't withdraw till next October, and then it's another year, so we're into like 2 years.
So we're not, so we shouldn't have a problem this
Right.
year with Glen Rock.
They never said, they just say we can't make that obligation, so that's the problem with
Yeah.
Glen Rock. They'll say, we want to stay, we just can't pay what you're asking us to pay.
Yeah.
So last time we gave them a refund,
Right.
you know, so.
We used a refund to pay
Right.
the balance. I
Right.
came up
To
with
bring
that.
theirs
Look,
down.
we know it's coming, let's just, you handshake and
Right.
you tell us you're gonna put that towards what you owe. It was $20,000. What you owe to bring yourself up pat with your obligation, and they said, okay, we'll do that. So when everybody else was getting the refund, they didn't, it went right into their account.
But they do have COVID, they're getting refunds too, just like Europe, you know, so they're gonna have some extra money too that they can spend on what they want.
I'm sorry, we didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, that was it.
Are you done? But like she said, the big thing is too, they're trying to get ahead on vehicles. The detective's vehicle, I think Chief is gonna take. He usually takes the oldest vehicle, and he takes that home. And he'll use one of the other vehicles if he is going out on patrol. He doesn't take, you know, but he takes the one with the highest mileage. And but they're also looking at, I think, another K-9 unit. But they're looking for donations. As a matter of fact, I think Officer Schaefer has K-9.
K-9.
The officer that has K-9 is already worked out donations for his next vehicle.
And they're working on the 501(c)(3) for that too.
Yes.
They're looking at that too.
Yes, so, you know, they're still getting donations for the K-9. Keep that in mind. They're always, you know, hoping for some donations for the K-9. It's been doing some great work. We're getting a lot of accolades for having that. Really, there wasn't a whole lot more in the next meeting because we had just had another one. You know, we discussed after last month, you and I both discussed with Chief, the parking lot down here. I still want to ask them to please, on the weekends especially, keep an eye out down there. This last Friday night, it was like a frat party. Friday night, 11:30, 12 o'clock. I mean, I actually heard neighbors on Front Street yelling at the kids across the street. They had all the doors of the cars open, the radio turned up all the way. They're down on our equipment at the playground. And I mean, it's not like there's, we're swinging, they're taking them and, intertwining the chains, and banging them together and then getting in and how they unwrap and pushing each other around. I mean, it was, like I said, it was 11:30, and it's a tough position to be in for them and for us, and Andy and I talked about it today.
But again, if there's noise, if they're doing damage, if they're, then that's not just,
We want them to know that
right.
we as a borough want them to enforce those noise ordinances, or if there's drugs involved, to do that and take control, because there's a big difference, like Andy said, between a couple of kids sitting in a car and talking and having all the doors open and the bass blaring on the stereo, and I encourage people that live on Front Street, if you have a problem, call the police. Don't try to take the matter into your own hands. You have somebody goes over and there's 7 kids over there, you only see 2 of them in the lot, but the other 5 are down in the park, and the next thing you know, you've got an altercation. Don't take a chance. Just call the police. They will handle it. We have handled it with them, so I think we're good there. That's all I have to say about the police. Free Day was a nice occasion. I heard so many people when I was down there say, boy, you guys are really doing some nice things. Those concerts were great. This Free Day was wonderful. Gave us a lot of accolades for doing that. And the big thing was, we really hope you continue to do that. So we have gotten a lot of good remarks. We've done a lot of good for the residents and with the residents. And Andrew's been such a big help in getting things coordinated there. He deserves a lot of accolades for that. The other, trying to be short, I talked about Knox boxes last month. I think we have an ordinance here, but I wanted to let council also know that I was not aware of this. Every place at Franklin Square already has a Knox box. I didn't know that until I talked to one of the people up at the fire department. They said they were already down and looked at that. I do have prices for Knox boxes from them. I don't know if you have an outlet that might be cheaper, but they're looking at, what is it, they have a 5 and a 20,
Yep.
something like that. And they, I mean, there's so many different ways you can do it. You can inset it, you can put it right on the outside of the wall, but they're really pleased because they have come to council apparently several times, or maybe it never even made it to council, but they've asked to have the Knox boxes. And if you're not familiar with a Knox box, it's a key that allows the fire department to enter into a building, a business, without having to crash through the front door. They have a key inside a box The fire department, I understand, now you said something different last time, but talking to the fire department, they said they actually have to get down, they have the code. They use a code, I think, on these Knox boxes, and they have to put in the code, person gives them the key, they put it in, and the fire company is the only one that has the key. I know you had mentioned something about county control, but they said it, didn't say that it works that way.
Okay.
And maybe that's
I
changed.
think I mean, that's going back, but I think originally
Yeah,
it was,
but I think that's a great idea, for our businesses, and you'll see, I guess, when we come up with the ordinance, how it's worded. But that's something good. Bad news, parade. I know Gil Ice came and wanted to do the parade along with Santa Claus. That is a Lions event. I got a call from the president of the Lions, and they said, this is our event. We don't want a parade. We just want Santa Claus to come down and light the tree. It's dark. Who's gonna see a parade anyway? So I don't know how we wanna.
you guys were here, I had a 40-minute conversation about that earlier today. So
With the Lions. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had a long conversation too. Of course, I'm a Lion, and he called me and said, what's going on here? This is our event, and we don't want a parade. So I don't know how you made out, but I said, hey, I guess it's your party, and.
We just said we'd support, so.
Yeah.
Right, we didn't give her permission.
No.
She kind of went back to them and made it sound like she had our permission to do it, no matter what, so. That's bad news for anybody that wanted a parade. I really don't have anything else.
Manager's report? Thanks, Kim.
You have my September 2021 report in your packet. A lot of the items we discussed through the budget process, and we'll discuss later on in the meeting. So I'm not going to extend the meeting any longer, read through all those, unless anybody has any specific questions on those items.
I just had a question on the street light upgrade thing. Is that just along the state routes then?
No, that's basically throughout the borough.
So even on some of the alleys where the lights are off half the time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll talk about that then, but yeah, that's basically throughout the borough, multiple streets.
It's gonna make it brighter or lighter?
Yes.
They're whiter and not that dull, kind of orangish yellow.
You gonna talk about the,
Yeah, so the second item, I know we talked a little bit about it before, especially on a couple specific roads. It was looking at the purchase of radar speed signs. So what I have in front of you tonight is two different quotes for two different units by Traffic Logic. Both provide, basically they're a solar radar driven driver feedback. These are controlled remotely through a cloud-based application, so you can download the data, you can turn the sign on and off, you can change the parameters all remotely. There's no need to actually go out to the sign except when it's installed. These are installed on basically a temporary basis, so they're movable. So you can keep it at one location for 2 months, you can move it to another location. So it has a lot of flexibility in what you can do with it and the locations that you can place it in. A little bit more than kind of like the radar trailers that the police department uses. So your two
It's a
different.
lot smaller too.
Right, yeah, you're talking about the size of a speed limit sign, basically.
it doesn't block the road with the trailer.
Yeah, right, yeah. So the difference between the two, obviously the cost is around $800 difference. Really, the difference comes from, the first one is just a numeric, where the second one is programmable to provide different messages. So it can say, if it's a 25 mile an hour, and you set your threshold at 32, anything 32 and above, it'll flash your speed and then slow down.
Okay.
So it just gives a little bit more driver feedback, animated graphics and moving arrows, scrolling messages, so.
It doesn't have this 100 on the face, does it? Because
Yeah.
I consider that would be a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's, that brings up a good point. Basically, you will have people that will try to see how fast it'll read. If you're in a 25, you can actually set it that over even 40, it won't read. So don't try it.
That would be good.
Right, but it's still collecting that data.
Yeah.
So these also have a stealth mode where they just collect data.
Is there something here the police can use, because in the end, I know how, it's been a long time since I was a kid, but, you see a sign that says, yep, I'm going 50. I guess I'll be more careful next time, I'll go 45 or 48, but to me, the best deterrent for speeding, if you get a speeding problem, is start writing tickets. I mean,
But that's the problem, you can't.
huh?
You can't. You can't really write a speeding ticket in this town because we don't have radar.
Well, what I've seen on the way to Mass, Sunday morning, the police were sitting in the cemetery over there. I mean, he was awake, I know he wasn't sleeping, so, I assume he's watching for
I think
speeders.
that's a deterrent.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just
just a
They said
deterrent.
the fire hall.
What's the cost?
So 2 signs at the base model, which is the Evolution 12, that's delivered is $5,223. The upgraded sign delivered is just under 6,000, I believe it was. For 2 signs, 5,983.
No, you can't write a ticket off the sign, but it's a reminder. People fly down Main Street, Constitution, they're going 50, 55. It's easy to do it because you're coming down the hill going up the other side, and if you see, oh geez, I guess I better, slow down. I catch myself doing that coming in Constitution. There are other roads too. Singer, Logan, we've gotten a lot of complaints about people up there on Logan taking the shortcut.
I know that a lot of places, like especially on the highway, they have a speed, but then they also have, you could get a ticket and it gets mailed to you. You can't do anything like that.
Pennsylvania law does not allow that.
Yes, you cannot read it.
Thanks, your user.
No, it's great.
We can take the sign and
Local police can't use radar, state police can.
State police. Now, there is still a bill that's hoping to get out of committee.
The only place,
We are the only state.
the only place where you can take a picture of a violation is in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, all that funding goes into the automated red light enforcement program. And all that money that's generated from those red light enforcement camp goes back into the Commonwealth and is funded through different pedestrian improvements and things, so.
Are there price points? Like for instance, if we got together with SRPD and we said, why don't we just all get, we'll get 2 for New Freedom, 2 for Glen Rock, 2 for, I mean,
Glen
could we
Rock
get a-
just bought 2. So we missed the boat on that.
I'm not sure which one they got. I know it's not a traffic budget. I can't remember. I guess it.
Well, I'm just wondering if we can get together and maybe just make a bulk purchase kind of a thing.
You will
Buy
save
6 or something.
You might save $200 or $300 per unit, but it's not going to be anything. Not going to be a huge savings.
I don't think the police this year is gonna go in on it because we already bought that other.
Yeah,
I think she's addressing it.
I'm proposing this as just a, can we,
Bruce?
Yeah, Bruce Merrill, 8 Glenray. Just for your edification, I think it must have been about 6 years ago, maybe. Shrewsbury bought one, and through the police commission, they bought it, they owned it, but they offered to, I don't know, lend it or rent it out to any of the other members of the community. The only party that I'm aware of that took them up on that offer, though, was Stewartstown. So your idea of buying it, maybe sharing it, you might run that past them. It's been looked at before, but go ahead.
I know we've used that one in New Freedom several times.
Have we? Okay.
Now this is the one that you don't know it's up.
Right, you don't know that it's up.
No,
I
we've
like
used
the
that,
idea of
we've
what
used that
you've
several
got.
times in New Freedom. I've asked like on Logan, I've asked on Constitution, South and North. What they do is it goes up for a week facing one direction, a week facing the other. Then you get a readout, because I had a lady that complained because she had kids, and it turned out, what are we, 25 out here on Constitution, and the average speed was 22, if you averaged it all out.
So
Is it
what
worth
do we
going
want to
the
do?
extra?
What do we want to do with this?
I like it, but I don't get rid of it.
Any comments, or?
I think it sounds like a nice idea. I don't think there's enough of enough pros to outweigh the price. Just my 2 cents. Especially if
Trail towns, if we put it down by
I mean,
around the.
I'd rather see money on something similar for like a pedestrian crossing going across the bike trail than something.
Well, we
like
already
that.
have that.
We don't?
Well, it's coming.
Maybe coming, but I'm saying I'd rather,
Yeah.
even if we went to like Franklin instead of just Main Street, but I don't see enough, myself, I don't see enough pros to outweigh that cost.
Well, I mean, we have a serious, the mayor's right, we have a serious problem on several roads. I mean, Singer's one of them, and people will just floor it down through there for whatever reason. I don't think this is really gonna stop them.
No.
I mean, it's,
Like speed bumps and, oh.
Oh, God, no.
Now you're just stirring a pot.
I'll tell you what, it sure slowed things down over in Shrewsbury.
I don't use it.
What, on Buffington?
But they're the easy ones, because they can, the tables, the snow plows can plow over them.
Can we get ones like this, that if you go a certain speed, that the little spikes pop up in the road?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, I guess we'll go ahead and table this then. I don't see enough.
Did you make a motion, or did anybody
Well,
make a motion?
no one's made a motion, that's why I'm asking, should we table this, or does someone want to make a motion?
I move we table it.
You think we table
I'll
it?
second that motion.
Second.
All right. I think we should keep it in mind for future, but I can,
I go to every council meeting. Do you want me to bring this up, that perhaps?
well, yeah, I mean, even if it got the cost down $300 per unit, I mean,
Even
that
if
would
we
save
buy
us
two,
$600.
buy
and then,
two
you
of
know.
them and share it with one other municipality, that's half price.
Well, I would probably, I think a lot of us might be in favor if we could like buy two and say that,
Opinions?
I would be.
Okay, opinions?
What's the point if they can't give them a ticket?
Well, the idea is, I mean, the whole thing is, the speed bumps that they put in Shrewsbury, those are called traffic calming things. And this is supposed to say, oh, I was going that fast, I'll slow down. I don't think it's going to,
It would help everybody in this room. My guess is the people who are speeding.
right, yeah, I don't think they're here tonight.
They're not looking at the dashboard, they're not gonna look at this sign.
I have been in other states. They've had police cars parked here and there. Nobody's in them,
You're right,
but it slows everybody
I
down.
brought that up.
That's
So
true.
So they're talking about getting new police cars, take those two old ones and put them there. Move them around.
That's an excellent idea. That would be, I mean, as long as they're drivable, just park it somewhere.
They
And
take
you can't, you gotta
one
move it
officer
every
drives
now
the
and
old one.
I mean, if they are not, and maybe they do this already, but if they are not going to give tickets out of the cemetery and pull out, There's no sense in wasting an officer's time to
You're
sit
right.
there for, at all.
You're absolutely
Just
right.
put the car like you said, and I like that idea, that's a good idea.
Why did they paint all the lines on the road, though? I thought that was for VASCAR. I thought so they could
That was
do
really
your
nice.
distance and that you could get.
I've actually got.
Well, they
from Pennsylvania
can, they
with,
can if they use VASCAR, but the problem is you've gotta have an open area of so many 100 feet, and there's very few places in New Freedom where they can do it, and I don't think they can do it on a state road, locally.
No.
They, you know, they've done it going out Constitution already.
'Cause
You
their
know,
lines on
but the
Third
problem
Street-
is, it ties up 2 officers. You have to have 1 officer there to do the reading, and then you have to have chase car. Well, we've only got 2 officers on duty all the time to cover 5 municipalities, so that makes it pretty tough to be able to do that. You know, where, I mean, not to say that, you know, we couldn't request it, but I love the idea of taking one of the old cars,
Yeah, that's a good
throw an
idea.
extra battery in it, and,
Yeah.
you know, let the lights,
Yeah,
they do it, like you said, they do it on 83.
yeah.
If you look on 83, you know, you're coming down and it says your speed limit, and I like the idea of slow down. Plus, I also like the idea, and I don't think we brought that up, that one of these, you know, if you get to a certain speed, it's got a strobe,
Yeah.
and that's gonna really catch your attention. I've seen the.
Trigger epileptic seizures.
Yeah, yeah, that'll stop you.
Okay.
But anyhow.
Let's go ahead and move on to the LED street lighting upgrade.
So I know a conversation I had with Councilman Ross about upgrading the street lighting. So reached out to MedEd because they do have a program. Basically, when a street light has reached its useful life, they will allow you to upgrade that street light at no cost. So currently, we have 155 MedEd owned street lights. There are more throughout the borough that are owned specifically and entirely by the borough. Right now, that's costing a little over $4,000 a month out of the general fund. And basically, you pay per unit for street light. So just remember that as we move forward. So looking at their database, 106 of 155 are eligible right now to be upgraded. Free, 0 cost, yeah. The remaining, there's a couple throughout the next years, but the remaining large balance would not be till 2031. So if you do all of the upgrades, the 49 and the, basically, we'll say all 155, there would be a cash outlay of $11,481. Before we get into the savings and everything, I'll say that the payback on that is 2.5 years. So it's a pretty short time frame to pay back $11,481 when you're saving over, I think we're right around $380. Yeah, about $380 a month. You get your savings back pretty quick.
How many New Freedom Borough lights are there about?
Well, MedEd, I'm not
Sure, the ones we have.
Donnie, do you have a number?
I'm not sure what the number is on them.
Yeah.
But we have ones out there that, that has a round ballast that goes in the pole, they don't even make that anymore. So we found a retrofit to change it to LED, so we just go ahead and change them to LED.
Yeah.
They're still using the same light, just changing the inside of it to LED, because they don't make those round ballasts anymore.
So we're already making those with borough-owned lights. I think it's time, you know, to make the change here with getting the rest upgraded. If you go with the 106 at 0 cost, the only thing I'd caution you is that you might go down a street and have a mix then because of this. So you could go down one street and have LED, sodium vapor, LED. So it would be best to do all of them at one time. And again, I realize there's a cash outlay, but after 2.5 years, you're you're paid off and you're back to, you're saving that money up front. So, the replacement fixtures, almost all of these, I believe, but, one is a Cobra style. So basically, they'll just go up and they'll change the head. It'll look very similar, it's probably a little bit smaller. The light, as you can see from the picture there, you go from a yellow glow to more of a white bright light with your LED fixtures.
Yeah, that's nice, actually, that
Yeah,
is more daylight, light, yeah.
Are these focused more towards the ground, kind of directional? The ones that might be close to somebody's house, do we have the option of putting a shade, I don't know what the proper name would be, kind of deflected away from the house? Is there like an add-on type of option?
Well, they're on those Cobra heads, so they're basically shining down like this towards the road.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if some of these are very close to somebody's house, if they were to say, hey, this is shining in my window, it's a lot brighter now, do
You
we
can always
have
go
the
back,
option?
you can go back and add a light shield.
That's what I'm saying, like, is that an option?
We would have to check with Med Ed. I'm sure they've run into that before where they had to turn the head a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be an issue.
I'm not saying that we should go out and do all of them like that, or anything, just if somebody were to have an issue, I want to know if it's an option or not.
One in Shrewsbury did this several years ago, and Shrewsbury or Glenrock, and they said it almost cut their electric bill in half.
Yeah.
It paid, and it was a free then, and that was when we first came on the council, and I brought it up and said, hey, they're doing this for nothing, why can't we? No, can't do it. Well, apparently we get it.
Yeah. And I know you list, I guess their office up in New York, but
Yes.
Do we know if there's a closer, by chance? In case somebody doesn't want to drive all the way up to York City.
Well, they use that strictly for display of
Yeah,
different.
Right, this is just display so that you could actually see the different. I'm trying to think, I know New Salem did some replacement along Main Street.
Well, you said Glenrock did, right?
I'm sure it was either Glenrock or Shrewsbury, and this was a year and a half ago when I first came on council,
Yeah.
or as mayor.
I think this is a really good idea.
Yeah, and basically, when you look at comparison, they do offer a 50-watt LED. However, they basically say don't do that. At least start at the 90 watt for replacing the 100 watt.
Then next question is, how do we decide which one, what goes where? As far as
It
the 90
would be a swap. So really, if you look at your eligible fixtures, 104 of those are high-pressure sodium, and they're all 100 watts. So you'd be switching those out with a 90 watt, which is
I got you.
It's 90 effective watt, though, it's not using 90 watts.
90 watts.
Equivalent.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and replace all 155.
Amen.
I
I'll
agree.
second that. I know the LEDs cut your electric.
Is there any other discussions from anybody? All in favor? Opposed? My vote is aye.
I have a related question on that.
Huh?
So if there are other streetlights that are owned by the borough that go out or are on and off all the time, who do I talk to about that?
Call the office and let us know.
Because there's a couple where I walk the dog at night late, and there are two that they're on until I get there, and then I go out.
Yeah, that's weird.
I've seen them too, it's your magnetic personality. I do want to point out that the LED streetlights are not dimmable.
Yeah, they're on the alley.
Yeah, okay. So those are Med Ed lights, so we have to call Med Ed to work on those.
I'm just curious, they're
But
gonna
we do
be.
have, you go back into the developments, and there are lights.
They go out and.
Like Kohler Point, the one you just put in Kohler Point,
More logistical.
there are
The
lights.
only problem
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
Yeah, half the Kohler
theirs,
Point
like
doesn't
with
have
this,
lights.
if the eye goes bad.
They don't run.
Bulb goes bad.
My street's on.
They take
Yeah,
care of it.
So
yeah,
these we
we have to
call them,
stop.
they fix.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like
We had trouble like.
And good luck, don't we have to fax them the number of the pole?
You go outside, they
We
walk.
have a form, yeah, but as part of this GIS upgrade, we're actually locating them, recording the fixture, recording the pole numbers and the house numbers, so that we have a database that we can go out and say it's pole number, whatever, 10 digits, 9 digits it is, and send that in, look it up a lot quicker.
Wow, that's GIS system's gonna do a lot.
Yeah. It's gonna fix my street.
That's on the list.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Your street doesn't have lights though, does it? You have your own
I'm
lights,
talking
right?
about stormwater.
Oh.
Okay, the next item is the Knox box draft ordinance. Did he give you anything for this?
No, we still have not been able to locate that piece.
Okay.
So,
All right. Knox box draft ordinance.
This was a draft that Solicitor Jones provided. I only made 2 changes, which are in red. That would be on section 2, which is the requirements, where it said applications for purchase, because we really want them to make that purchase directly from Knox box, not basically make an application here. That was original. When they first started that, you had to go to the municipality to get an application and fill it out. Now you go directly to Knox box and make that purchase. You have to pick Rose Fire Company, and then they get notified that they made that purchase, I believe. So got rid of that last sentence in section 2. In section 3, subsection C, Wade and I discussed that the key box shall be attached to the building with through bolts and may be surface mounted or recessed, because I think we should leave that open. Basically what it says now, that it should be recessed on existing buildings being retrofitted. Just trying to give a little bit more leniency there.
Yeah.
Because when you got it, when you surface mount the through bolts, that have to go the whole way through the building into the inside are pretty significant according to their specifications.
Yeah, it's actually cost prohibitive.
And you can see Dave Jones' comments in blue there about defining multifamily, how does it match the zoning ordinance, time prior to installation as far as getting the ordinance in place, and do we have a list of all the buildings that would be affected and need to comply.
What's the not less than fine anything?
Normally, it's not less than 100, not more than 1,000.
So it should be 100.
Yeah.
For us to proceed with the ordinance, do we have to define a multifamily? I mean, we have to add that before we can proceed, because isn't this one that has to go through advertising?
This would be
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we would, my interpretations or thoughts would be that we would want to match the zoning ordinance.
Which says, what?
As far as definitions, we'd have to.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
what's the zoning ordinance define multifamily? 3?
I think it is 3.
We'll have to look that up to get a clear definition on that.
I mean, because if we're going to go ahead and request this ordinance go forward, who will go ahead and make these edits? And then should we look at it again? Can we just approve it through
Approve the edits?
email?
Yeah, I think,
I mean, the withdrawals look great, the redded out areas look fine, but it's just that if we need to add this, and we're gonna try to make some sort of a.
my thought was that tonight we would just get the general idea and then come back with another draft before advertisement.
Can we add that to our budget meeting, or would that be inappropriate? You know what I mean, we're doing our budget meeting
If we were
and.
You'd have to add, you'd have to, you'd have, yeah, I think we just have to keep it budget only for this
Okay,
time.
and so this would be a little bit.
Yeah. We could though, I mean, we could decide on these edits.
Yeah.
Right.
And then approve it with the incorporated edits, and then they could advertise and we
As
could vote on it.
revised and reviewed, because
right,
we
yeah.
could, if the edits were made, they could all be sent out.
Right.
to the council.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then just, yes or
Yeah,
no.
there's no sense in, unless you think we should look at it again, but like I would take out the the fire chief unspecified box number. I think we should stick with one box number. I mean, if you start doing that, you're gonna confuse things.
Well, but there's two different size boxes.
But that's okay, they're listed here. It shall be box 3200 or 4400 series, or other Knox block as approved in writing by the fire chief.
Well, I've got the recommendations from the fire chief. Let me see if I can find.
It's just taking out something not a Knox box. Sorry. I missed. So far.
Below the models and price ranges for Knox boxes, the 3200, this is what they're using and recommend, holds up to 10 keys or access card, base price $429, but they haven't gotten their increases. The Knox Vault 4400 holds up to 50 keys, and the base price is $694. These are today's prices. The salesperson could not tell if there would be a price increase in 2022 or not. So we can refer people to that particular salesperson or the fire chief, and he can pass on the information per ordinance, Andrew?
Ordinance, yes.
Per ordinance, you get the information from the fire chief.
And the price is on the business owner, right? It's not.
Yes.
And isn't that what it says now, without the little blue comment? Isn't that what it says, that you can buy one or the other, or other Knox Vault as approved in writing?
See, I
By
didn't
the fire
compare
chief.
the two. Yep, 3200 or the 44.
Right.
That's exactly what they recommend.
So I
that's-
agree, we could probably remove that little
Yeah.
blue box.
Yep.
And then you're gonna take the, whatever it says in the.
And you'll match that to the zoning.
Yeah, multifamily is 3 or more.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what 3 units.
So it already says 3 or more, right?
Yep.
Doesn't.
Well, that's, we have to put that definition in, correct?
Okay. So you can do that, and then the last two,
Is there a cost for him to go with, building inspector to go to, the site prior to installation?
Oh, does he have to?
Building code officer to schedule a site visit prior to installation?
I mean, I think it makes sense to do it prior.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely want to do it prior,
But
but
if you look at his
of
note.
course, you're making the assumption that they'll do it the way he told them to do it, but yeah, that's fine. I mean, prior,
Well, you know, the fire chief is gonna have to go there to set it up anyway, so
So he'll
if
see
it's
it
not
after.
right, he would probably say, look, I'm not gonna approve this
Right.
isn't, you know, call the
Okay.
code enforcement officer, and
So
this
code-
isn't right.
so code enforcement will visit the site prior to installation, right?
Yep.
So leave the blue in there.
And the fire chief visits afterwards then.
Sorry?
I'm sorry?
The fire chief goes afterwards to make sure it's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the fire chief has to actually set it up,
Right.
and he's the one that puts the key in and sets the code. And this, just so everybody knows, This goes along with Shrewsbury, Glen Rock, and I think Shrewsbury Township. They all have this same thing.
Yeah.
So say our fire department is out and Shrewsbury responds, Shrewsbury can access those Knox boxes, get the key, and do their thing.
Do we have a complete list of buildings that would be required to have it?
We go through the
Yeah.
software and get one. I do think we need to back up to F. And if, I think we need to say something that the fire chief needs to be contacted after install, or maybe that's
That's G.
EFG, yeah.
It's,
I thought it did too, but maybe I don't see it anymore.
as approved in writing by the fire chief, yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
the
right.
approval of the box.
And we want,
The fire chief should give final approval.
so we can, so, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance.
What's G?
G is fire chief.
Fire chief.
Is contacted after
Final,
install.
yeah, final.
Should I give final approval?
Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
so that we adopt the ordinance, excuse me, that we advertise the ordinance
For adoption at next meeting.
for adoption next meeting with the changes to be made by Andrew Schaefer and circulated by email for our comments and approval prior to advertising.
That sounds good to me.
I'll second it.
Yay.
Dennis Cummings, 39 East Main. Who has to have this box?
It's just commercial and multifamily residents. If you have more than 3 families living in the, if you have more than 3 apartments, or 3 units, you would have to have a Knox box. Or if you had a commercial, or a combination of commercial and a residence above it, you would have to have one.
You have to.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed? My vote is aye.
There was one miss, the sale of the property,
I'm sorry?
sale of the property was right before that.
He's not here to talk about it. In line with the budget discussion, the borough-owned property along Pleasant Avenue has that lease value of, I think it was $3,000 in the budget. So what we're trying to do is, number 1, find the lease, and number 2, see if that can be subdivided off, because the borough's not gonna sell a piece of property that we're making $3,000 a year on. So that's where we're at with that right now, so.
How come this is so difficult to pin down? This is at least the second month, maybe the third that we talked about this.
We're unable to locate the lease.
And they can't.
Well, we get money for
But they're
it.
paying it, right?
This is one we said we get money from
On
Verizon.
the remittance that Verizon provided, there was a phone number. I called that number, they basically told me that it's just accounts payable, but here's a number for the real estate division. I called the real estate division, she said that's not one of our lease numbers, here's the number for the specific individual that handles the leases in your area. I've called and emailed multiple times, there's an assistant to her, I've called and emailed multiple times. I can't get a response on anything to try to locate that lease. So, I'm not sure, I mean, they're paying the bill, I don't really.
I guess
Tell
we
you
should
to
be
sell the
glad
property,
they are.
and then they'll call you back.
Let's send them a bill for $10,000, and I'll bet you to find a lease then.
Yeah. There you go,
You
yeah.
could- we could
do 10,000.
Donnie, go
This only
down
says-
and unplug it. No, somebody will call.
We even looked at I know Wade went down, looked at the building for like a emergency number located on the building somewhere, there's nothing.
Yeah, I have a phone number for the guy that used to come there years ago, but then it changed guys, so.
I mean, I guess why they're paying it, because if they could turn around and say, no, we couldn't do anything because we don't have a contract. I guess there's.
Well, the buildings, I mean, they're using it, so
Yeah, but then what-
maybe they're afraid we're gonna ask for an increase. So just ignore them.
Might as well.
Andy?
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
How much acreage is this? And what are the exact borders of it? Does it border the rail trail, is it the wooded area in there?
It borders almost like home, Pleasant Avenue, it's a triangle, and I
Yeah.
think it does come up.
Does it include the meadow there? It used to be a
It does
meadow
not
there.
include the meadow, it does
No.
include the woods.
No,
Okay.
it's really just a dump site for our chips
It
and mulch.
includes the wood, it's the woods.
There's some
Yes.
woods back
And
there.
and so that would border the rail trail.
No, it's a
Well, not the
storage
rail
town.
trail, but the railroad, yes.
Yeah,
It's
I
right
mean-
up to the railroad.
The creek is there, and then you
Right.
have the railroad where it's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
why can't it be made a park?
Gee.
it's all mushy, it's just,
Well, yeah, it's a flood zone. Always has been.
yeah.
These aren't talking in the same area.
Hmm?
You're not talking in the same area. This is across from Ceiling and Jones.
Yeah, from
Okay.
from
Right along the
Stewartstown
railroad
Railroad.
tracks, it's Stewartstown Railroad.
Yeah.
It's right there, it's right in the front.
Kind of goes
Yeah,
south.
where Arrow used to have their building.
You mean that block building
Yeah.
that we used to keep newspapers in?
Yeah, and before that, they used to keep old
Well,
gas pumps in it.
Yeah, well, that's Warehouser on that side, that's on the other side of the tracks.
Yeah.
This place is on the east side of the railroad tracks, or west side, right across from Ceiling and Jones. You can see it like from the road, you can see the building. It's
Yeah, where you
back
can
there.
go in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the same spot.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it
it's,
go,
it's not a
yeah,
very big spot, it's only just.
It's a pretty big spot.
yeah, it goes clear down to
Have you been back there?
the,
Well, no,
the
we're
triangle.
talking about the property that they lease for that, the rest of that, the borough.
No, he's talking about the whole lot.
The whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Why can't you make a park out of it?
Yeah.
Borders a rail trail. I mean, it's a perfect spot.
I asked
Yeah,
him.
the rail trail's not there.
It does border the rail trail, yes.
Yeah. If the railroad's there, the rail trail.
The
You have
very
the
top where the
Stewartstown
title is, right to the
Railroad,
rail trail.
It's
and
not
you have the
Stewartstown.
other railroad where the creek is.
That's
Yeah,
Stewartstown Railroad,
Stewartstown
not the
Railroad,
rail
it's not the
trail.
York County
Not
Railroad.
the York County Rail Trail, it's Stewartstown Railroad.
Yeah,
I'm,
but the woods goes
I'm
clear
pretty sure
down
it's
to
the-
the track. I mean, to the northern central, whatever you wanna call it.
It doesn't get down that far, I don't think, does it?
It's a big triangle.
yes, it
Yeah,
does.
it
Well,
does. go
yeah.
down.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm pretty sure it bumps right to
I
the rail
worked
trail,
in
not
there when
Stewartstown.
Warehouser, we had a project there years ago in Boy Scout.
Yeah,
I mean,
But the ground
that's a
sits,
perfect spot
low in there
for
with
a
the
park.
creek.
I think the rail trail's the other side of Constitution, isn't it,
no, it is not.
It is?
It is not.
I think it would be a
So-
tough, I
I
mean,
mean,
we're,
Third Street.
time out, we're not gonna make it a park, we're still gonna use it to dump our mulch and dump our things to compost and stuff. So it's really not appropriate for a park unless it's for bunny rabbits going in and out and stuff.
Well, somebody had talked about making it like a community garden park thing where they put fruit trees and the community could get together and put their own gardening.
But we're still
in.
using it for mulch and,
Well,
someone would have to
yeah.
be responsible for snakes and vermin and foxes and,
Unless you have an at-risk sign like equestrianism.
I'm sorry?
Unless you have an at-risk sign like equestrianism.
That doesn't work.
Well,
This has been freedom.
It's just like a skate park, it doesn't work. The liability's still on the property owner.
For a public park,
Yes,
then how's that different from our Goodfellow?
moving on.
Okay.
Good flow.
Engineer monthly progress report.
This is the time for the council to discuss, not the public.
Okay. This has all been covered, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so that's really not.
yeah.
Water report,
Well,
what I miss? Oh, I stuck it back here, sorry. This one? Okay, so, we're going. Not quite, sorry. can't put it away because I took notes for it. All right, we have contract change order number 1 in the amount of $352,454, and contract change order number 2 in the amount of $3,432. And we're going to consider approval of the application for payment number 2 in the amount of $1,135,700. What did you stick in here?
Oh, that's just.
Just your notes, okay, $773. This is work that's already been done on the water and sewer replacement that we've actually already paved over. And this was what we talked about last month when they haven't billed us for the work that they've done. So this has been reviewed by the engineer and the construction company and is ready for our signature.
Do you need a motion?
On each.
Yeah, on each one, yeah.
Both change orders and the payment application.
Do you need a separate motion?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the change order number 1 for, isn't it 1 million something?
Change order number 1 is.
It's at the bottom.
$352,454.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the first change order.
I'll second.
Renell seconds. Any discussion?
This is just really, I'm sorry, just, kids, it was essentially their pavement stuff, right?
Yeah, this is all done. I mean, it's all, you know, and they're just.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, so I said, yeah, I thought I tried to anyway.
Yeah.
This is all work, it's been paved over already, it's all done, and they're just asking for their money.
Basically, the addition was because of, I guess, the work that Columbia Gas was doing was originally broken out of the contract, but in order to do it all together and then get the reimbursement from Columbia Gas, we're increasing the contract by that amount. The other difference is, when it was bid, there was not a full width mill and overlay. It was only a trench repair, which when you're that wide, you've got to do a full mill and overlay, especially when you're on a state road. So that's the difference there as well.
That's our units, is it approved? We stopped. Sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
My vote is aye.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve contract change order number 2 in the amount of $3,432.32.
That's all second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
My vote is aye.
And I'd like to make a motion for considering the approval of application for payment number 2 in the amount of $1,135,773.76.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's not, yeah, it's okay, it's not the final bill.
It's not the final, yeah.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bring up. My vote is aye.
Just one quick note I made. The majority of that $1,135,000 is from the general fund. Only $5,454 is actually related to water work. So this is basically all curb and overlay, which is coming out of the general fund.
You want this back?
Yeah, you should.
I did, on my agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess. Gotcha. All right, water system report.
Questions?
Does anyone have any questions on the water report? Looks like everybody went back to work. Okay, the monthly wastewater treatment plan report. Do we have any response back from the townships about the meter, the wastewater?
Yeah, I think I'm waiting on one more response and then we should have that meeting set up.
Any questions?
Yeah, when I went through, I went down the next day, they had been there all night, babysitting,
Yeah,
At one point, they had to run manually, but they stayed in the tank.
You talking about with Ida?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
there's a paper. Okay. All right, zoning and code enforcement. So they want this too. It's just part of the plans. Any questions on that?
Any of these sheds related to the ones, I didn't kind of cross-reference the addresses, but for the ones that are on the code enforcement. So nobody's applying to replace their condemned she shed?
No.
She all should burn down her she shed.
Yeah. There was something here, Andrew. Where the heck?
Burning garbage.
There was, I don't want to give a name, we can't give names, can we?
No.
Okay, but we can give address?
No.
Well, then I was just,
How about a line number?
I'll put the picture number.
I gotta find it.
While he's looking at.
No, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, a lot of these are habitual or repeat. We having success with some of these individuals overall?
Yeah, the first one, we have a hearing scheduled for the 27th.
Okay, because I think that was one of the first ones you
Yep.
put on here, so.
Yeah, that.
But
that
who's
hearing's-
gonna show up for that? Who did the letter get sent to? The deceased or?
No. the-
Okay, all right,
Maybe the estate, I have to check, but
okay.
someone scheduled the hearing, so.
Oh, okay. Mine was item number 2, where it says all vehicles but one have been demonstrated. I can't believe that. There's 2 in the back. I mean, have you gone there?
The one that was,
I gave you
covered it, yeah,
pictures.
it came down here and had,
Green mold on it.
it was running
You gotta be kidding.
and had a valid registration on it. And
Where'd he get
tag.
the tags? Are you sure the tags matched that car? He pulled off another one.
Yeah, I wrote down all the tags to make sure that they did.
He had a clipboard, he drove through
Oh, I
it.
know, it took up a lot of your time. Bless your heart, that was, okay.
It was better mechanic than we thought.
Actually rated.
Okay. Recreation, October meeting report.
Yeah, pretty quick meeting. They talked about the upcoming, I don't want to call it concert. It's New Freedom Day of Hope, October 17th, 2021. And that'll be from 4 to 7 p.m.
It was.
Yesterday.
Oh, that's not, I'm missing days. Thank you. It was yesterday from 4 to 7.
Our meeting's a week later, so you have a good excuse.
We'll go with that. Just for future, I guess basically a question of the Borough Council, to make sure that we're putting all activities on the Savvy Citizen. I think the last concert went on a little bit late, if I'm not mistaken.
We just need someone to communicate with us what they want on and when they want on. I mean, that, we have expressed that multiple times, that if we just get a list of what they want.
I got the impression that they had contacted somebody at the Borough a couple weeks.
We've asked a couple times for that information, and it's always last minute, so if we get a list, we'll put it on right away, that's not an issue.
Yeah, I didn't think we were having an issue or any kind of debate on what to or not to put on there, especially with something from the Rec Council.
Right.
But
Yeah, no.
I was given the impression that it was upwards of a week beforehand that they contacted somebody at the Borough. So, all right. Well, then I will pass that information along.
And as far as the meetings, we can set up a reoccurring event, so it's not an issue.
All right, so could we do that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you reschedule though, you'll have to contact or else it'll show up.
Yeah. Band concert, the concert was held by the Rec Commission. Went extremely well. The band First Class did an outstanding job. Gil Ice did a great job providing food for the event. Gil Ice also provided some hot dogs and hamburgers for a food item at the concert.
I don't have to.
They did say the games that Andrew provided were awesome. There was an Eagle Scout that was possibly looking for a project, suggested that maybe they could do some of these games. He seemed interested. I don't know exactly how interested though, but hopefully something will come of that. Lisa and Kara Zapak and Eva and Caleb Ross did a great job running the games. They made $100 in water sales and donations. Valerie, I think we could say Ashman, was in charge of all of that. And they plan to continue the concerts next year. And I believe they're going to look into securing First Class for a Saturday concert. And right now they're looking at August 13th, 2022, and then Saturday, September 17th as a follow-up concert date. So they took some of the feedback that they are doing a Saturday would be better than a Sunday between attendance and food truck availability. So.
And then that was something that I expressed too. If they want food trucks, that should start now, because that's the problem.
I think they learned some lessons about the food trucks, and even though the band might cost a little bit more on Saturday, I think that it'll be better attended and overall. The one thing that they wanted to look into was getting another beer vendor. I suggested, it's called S&S Brewery. They don't have a physical location. They have sold at Shrewsbury. So I don't know how all that works, but they do have that availability to do that. So they're going to reach out to a couple other local breweries and try to get some of that booked.
Were they going to try with the people that were at the first concert?
What's that?
There was a beer vendor at the first concert.
Yeah, that was, I think, a little more, I think people wanted more like draft, not go and buy 4 cans.
Yeah, Windridge.
Yeah.
People were a little disappointed in that, because like you said, they had to buy 4 cans.
Yeah,
of wine.
But it was
Yeah.
cheap, it was cheap for it,
Well,
yeah, it wasn't, didn't cost very much, so.
Adult tennis, started on September 11th, and it will run, with 12 participants until October 23rd. Pickleball, they've had a lot of great success, and they're gonna look at adding some dates. They did, and I think I sent this to you, they wanted to know about the cleaning of the floor and how often that happens and who's responsible.
Yeah, I mean, it gets cleaned when the center gets cleaned as far as that, but my understanding at this point is it needs some kind of deep cleaning. And we're working on getting that set up at this point. So
Okay.
I did get a message today that the cleaning person went in and everything's much better at this point.
Okay.
With the right cleaning.
Okay. Farmers market was held on October 2nd, had 9 vendors. They made $120 on that. They're not doing a trunk or treat as they did in previous years. Chili cook-off tentatively scheduled for January 2022. This will be held on a Sunday in the community center. And then the Veterans Day dinner has been tabled until 2022 due to COVID. Gaga Pit, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with that. That has been installed. I've seen many kids down there having some fun with that. Don't get me started. The Lions Club tree lighting. The Lions Club will be having their tree lighting ceremony on November 22nd, and they asked to borrow the sound system for the event. Told them that was not an issue. I wasn't speaking out of turn. And that was about it.
Cool. Can I add something? The person who never gets thanked, who was there every Sunday, Gavin, who always got out the games and stayed and
That is
waited
true.
for the games to wait.
That is true.
And stood there every Sunday night that we were there and for the third one.
Thank you.
And I went, thank you.
Thank you, Donnie.
Very much so. Okay.
I had just a quick thing, I know, but on the trunk or treat that you're talking about there, so we're having Halloween on Halloween, right?
Yes.
Yes.
The church at the end of the alley is having trunk or treat on that same night. I didn't know if that makes a difference or,
Hit them all.
okay.
We're married.
Bonanza. Okay, committee reports, did you want to?
Yeah, I attended a meeting October 13th, which was the fire meeting with DCED. John Senate came down to speak to the fire representatives. It was mentioned that Peter Milan, before he abruptly left and his unexpected departure, did not create any statistics or any summary, no product at all for us to go with. They're replacing him, currently looking for someone to replace him, but they are a 2-man operation in the EMS side, and they're supposed to have 4, so it may be quite some time before we get any information from them, just so you know. The fire part, it seemed like all of the fire representatives were interested in creating an umbrella between the Shrewsbury, the Rose, and Glen Rock fire companies. They are talking about sharing equipment, sharing information, coming up with a plan so that there's not overutilization or underrepresentation, whatever, so that everything is equal throughout. They did ask for, John Senate asked for a number of things, and Todd Ziegler is supposed to collect these things, but he wants the information from the borough, okay? The most recent census data and any projection for future growth, traffic counts and any projection of increase in roadway usage, the height of bridges and underpasses which might impede transport of fire equipment in the areas of the municipalities, water supply both public and private, and to quantify the building trends and expected future growth, industrial, commercial, and homes. So,
Have a nice All right.
Have a lovely
That's
day.
actually not that hard.
I don't
Because
think
we
so.
only have,
The
right
census
now,
is-
we're zoned for
Yes.
expansion. I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably about 100 homes.
Right, right.
I think the rest of the expansion would be actually in Shrewsbury Township.
Right, and
So,
he's
yeah.
asking it for each municipality,
Yeah.
and I'm, of course, spreading the wealth,
Yeah, that's
sharing.
It's odd that they ask for census data when you go on the census.
Exactly.
Go up and get them.
But this is something with DCED, they seem to want the municipalities to provide information
Yeah.
that they can get
Don't they have,
online.
don't they have Google?
I don't know. The only other thing that they said, when one of the councilmen that were there brought up that, you know, we don't, when we go into certain areas, we don't get any kind of remuneration, like when we go into Maryland. And it was brought up that the council members should go out and approach the other municipalities and ask them to basically man up. And that
Sorry?
would- Right. So we should be going to all the communities that are served in Maryland as council representatives and tell them to make contributions towards roads. That was basically what.
Have they
DCED
done
said.
anything along the lines of asking them for a contribution?
They talk about mutual aid. That's all they talk about, is this is part of the
Well, I
mutual
know,
aid
but I
package.
understand that. They don't, certainly don't have to get money.
As the mayor has brought up,
Yeah.
if the ambulance bills for services, then the ambulance will get whatever the individuals will pay or what Medicare will pay. So there is that, but to make up some of the discrepancies and disparity, you know, that we should go ahead and talk with their representatives and
I think, given the light that, that DCED, and they're falling on their sword, they're not gonna give us anything really. So, given that, I think it's even more imperative that we come up with something umbrella for the communities to get together and talk with fire and ambulance and try to come up with some prorated share, kinda like that chart that I drew, you know.
Right.
Something to come up with, and then we're responsible for this percent. And that's kind of what.
I
And the
agree.
mayor,
We looked
the
at
mayor
that.
had given me his numbers, his most recent numbers, which were exactly the numbers that I had gotten from before, that I had shared with you. And we came up with a percentage of what New Freedom was served by the ambulance.
Right.
Again, this isn't fire, this is just ambulance. And I think that if we based what we put in to Rose on that, it would be good.
I was surprised.
Yeah. I think when we get the fire and the ambulance thing, I think what I'm gonna suggest is that we give or the EMS part of Rose, the money that we've given them in the past, which was 13 and change, 13.5, I think, was it?
And they were asking for 10
And
additional.
then 10, and give them the 10 additional for training as a start. And
Now,
then-
this is strictly EMS.
Right.
This is just because we have a fire tax, and everybody
Right,
at that
that's-
meeting has fire tax that helps to serve.
But
and-
just
Yep.
EMS, that would be
Just
like
EMS,
23.5.
because if you give it to Rose, there's no guarantee Rose
No.
is gonna give it to the EMS side.
No, it'll go directly, we can do that, right?
Yeah.
We can just cut directly to
Oh,
Rose
sure,
EMS,
yeah.
because they have a separate EIN number now.
Mhm.
Yep,
So, it's redundant. They have a separate EIN.
yep.
But no one has EMS tax of our municipalities. They do have the fire tax, that is.
And I
Yeah, they
think-
don't
I
have
think
it,
to go,
well, they do, but they don't. They take it out of their general fund, and they give them quite a bit more, I think, than what we do. But I think you probably might even know, does that go to Rose, or does that go to EMS? Shrewsbury
I-
gives like 30,000, but I don't.
Shrewsbury Township gives 64,000 to Glen Rock through the taxes for fire. They give Rose $82,798.91 through the
Rose
fire
Fire.
tax. Rose Fire.
See,
And I
what
don't
does-
know what
They don't
EMS gets
share.
from it. And Shrewsbury Fire Company gets $108,081. So there is a significant amount of taxes that are being given to the fire companies, and I don't know what is shared by a fire company to EMS.
Not a lot.
Probably
That's
not.
the thing. As a matter of fact, I think Shrewsbury gave 30,000 just to EMS.
So we need to work towards getting that umbrella, you know. Are there any other committee reports? Trail Town? Any meetings that we have? Okay. Unfinished business, review of the current peddling and solicitation ordinance.
This is just a carryover from last
Yeah.
month's agenda, so it's up to council to discuss further,
Okay.
or table again, or.
I liked it.
Yeah, did we have a reason why we tabled it? We had
Uh,
other changes
everybody
we
to
just-
say?
I
Just to
think we
look at
first
it,
seen
yeah.
it. I think that was the first.
Yeah,
one
we
seen.
just had it drafted, so we hadn't really seen it.
Okay.
What is, this is a
This is the
non-ordinance,
current,
right?
this is the current ordinance, yes.
This is the ordinance, so if we were gonna make the changes that are defined here, even then we'd have to have it.
We'd have
We
to-
can't
Yeah,
amend
guys.
the ordinance, we have to do a new one.
So the biggest thing is, it doesn't go for a whole year, it's only 7 days, right?
Right. Yeah, this.
Now, is
calls
that
for-
7 consecutive years, or days?
Yeah.
It's getting late.
Yeah,
Because
the-
it doesn't say 7 consecutive days, it says 7 days, I think.
Well, the other side too is, like, what happened?
There it is. Do we need to put in there, Andrew, for 7 consecutive calendar days? Otherwise, they may say, well, it doesn't say consecutive, I came back 7 different days.
Probably doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it says one time, once a year.
Only
Under the
one
terms of
will be
registration.
accepted for calendar year.
Right. Right.
On that second page, under B, name of applicant, blah, 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 type of vehicle be used, if any, should we require a plate number? For police to be able to, I know we had that situation out on Smith Mill,
What if they're using
and
more
people
than
got
one
the
vehicle?
plate number, but they did, that's all they got. And the police didn't know if that was associated with these people or not.
What if they're using more than one vehicle?
Every vehicle thing should probably be registered.
Yeah.
I mean, we might not charge them for every,
Yeah.
because what they do is they have 4 different vehicles, one hits this part of town, that part,
Yeah.
at least that's what they did the last time.
Yeah, I agree.
Plate
For all
number.
vehicles to be used.
And did you say you were gonna make it 7
Yeah.
continuous days?
Are
Seven
food trucks
consecutive.
covered by this?
Is what?
Food trucks, ice cream trucks, are they covered by it? Because I couldn't see where it was, they were excluded or not.
No, that would be
No,
a separate,
that's
that's a food
food
vendor,
vendor.
and that's a year-long permit.
That's like your milkman doesn't need one.
Okay.
I don't remember those days.
Well, I was when I checked, I could eat ice cream more than 7 days.
See, this is what came up last time about food trucks. Yeah. And because,
We're not counting food trucks as
Peddler
outlets.
is different peddling, selling or offering goods, goods, wares, services, or merchandise for immediate delivery. So that could be a farm truck or an ice cream truck.
Well, milk and milk products is not considered they're an exemption.
Well, but the Swan truck doesn't just bring
I just didn't see
Well,
it written.
what else do they have? Meat?
it meat, vegetables.
I think it says in here, meat, vegetables.
It's different, because they're contracted by the homeowner.
That's true, all they're making is a delivery.
Yeah, like,
They don't go door to door soliciting.
No.
I mean,
Maybe
they
like Schwann's and
deliver
stuff
my
like
neighbor,
that.
and he's
Yeah.
going once
Yeah.
left or knocked on my door,
Right.
so I think that would be different.
And we wanna get the people where the meat falls off the back of the truck, and
Yeah.
got this extra meat to sell to you.
Capital state.
I don't know what fell off.
Yeah, but it says that registration does not apply to that, to meat products. I haven't had one of those guys come around for a while.
But that, it does, I don't think it should be, I don't think it should apply to delivery, but it should apply to peddling and soliciting
Right.
meat and vegetables, you know, that's the difference. If you've got someone delivering your groceries, that's one thing. If someone's pounding on a door trying to sell you half a side of beef or something, that's peddling. I'm not sure where you fix it at, but.
Anybody had those guys sell, oh, they left. Anybody had those guys coming around saying, oh, we got some extra meat on the truck, or somebody?
Yeah.
Have you,
Capital
lately,
Meats,
have you?
yeah. Capital Meats, that's who they are.
The meat sucks too.
Yeah. And it does, because I
So that
got
doesn't-
suckered in once.
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 You wanna put except Captain Meats?
No, he said they stopped.
You really just need to get rid of B two.
Yeah.
He's thinking of taking orders from manufacturers.
Shall not apply to. Well, if you took that
But-
out,
But it doesn't apply to
Then it
the
makes-
Schwann guy because he's not soliciting or peddling.
True.
He's just delivering.
What about
It's kind of
the
like
what
UPS.
about the ice cream truck?
Customers.
You mean the ice cream truck that goes ding ding down the
Ding,
street?
ding, ding.
Yeah.
Like a Gill Ice? That would be a food.
Well, but if we were to take out, B two, okay, as an exception, then people couldn't come to your house selling Captain Meats.
Yeah.
But
Good.
they couldn't sell ice cream.
You can sell
I
milk,
mean,
milk
ice cream.
products, ice cream.
But I think when someone comes, like when Gill Ice comes to the borough office, we say, here is your food vendor. They don't fall into that.
That's right, yeah.
Well, in here? No.
I don't have a food.
It's in,
Do we have a food vendor?
well, we've been charging Gill Ice a permit fee, so there must be something
nice.
somewhere.
Do we?
Yeah, it's $10 and it's good for a year.
So that would be
Yeah,
covered in this thing, I would think.
Okay.
Well,
I think that would be covered in here somehow.
it's not, though.
Well,
We accepted the seeking or taking of orders by any manufacturer or producer for the sale of bread, bakery, meat products, milk, and milk products. Well, it doesn't say ices. So, I guess. Sweet liquid,
yeah. Well, it might not be in there, but we've been doing it.
Who did it, and what, did we have a form that they filled out or anything, or just?
You know, I guess we'll have to check with Brenda, because I know for a fact
You know what?
That even the ones that came like for the concerts, the food trucks that came to concerts, they had to get a permit. It's good for a year.
If you're selling something.
I didn't tell them they had to.
Yeah,
They went to the borough office, they got a permit for $10, and wow, it's good for a year. I know Gill Ice got one. I know that when Stewartstown Barbecue was down there, Gill Ice said, we had to get a permit for $10, and they didn't get a permit, you know, so they had to go get a permit, so they got one. So we're selling them, might not.
And
Might
we're
not be
looking
anywhere
into that
in
one,
Maine.
that's, where'd that come from?
Well, I think that ought to be settled before we finish this.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, the only place possibly that you could put it is if you took out number 2, B2, which is all of the meat and food and
Right.
stuff, then under peddling, you could say the selling or offering of such goods, and at the very end say, included in this would be door-to-door ice cream, snack, slushy, whatever you had to say in there, then you'd call that peddling, and then they would need a permit.
Right.
And then it could be for a year possibly, although this says they're limited
7
to
days,
7
right.
days.
Yeah.
It's almost like you make a different definition
Yeah.
for them.
And apparently we do somewhere.
Yeah,
If
there has to be a
it's
separate
$10.
definition for the people who, you know, Bonkies gets a $10 permit for their ice cream truck.
For a year.
For a year.
Yeah.
It's just so that we know that that they've come to the borough office, and we know they're in
Right.
the borough, and we know what, you know.
But
So
if
somebody
that
just-
came in from another state with an ice cream thing,
Yeah,
yeah, right.
okay. So we're gonna table it again and check it out. All right.
Why?
Because we
I
gotta
mean,
have a
You don't have the
definition.
answers, you
It's
don't
not
have the
covered.
answers at this point.
We have to have a definition of what it applies to.
And if you're gonna make an exception to the 7 days per year rule, and you allow
But
slushies
they're not considered peddling or soliciting though, are they?
there's no place else that is covered.
And it says that they are, it doesn't apply to them in here,
You're not-
under B. Farmers
Then you're allowing capital meats.
taking of orders by any man, well, it says meat, you can sell meat if you're taking orders. Bread, bakery, meat
So capital
products,
meats
milk.
is allowed to knock on our door.
It says you don't need to
That's what
have
it would be,
that
yeah.
solicitor's permit for that.
They didn't want capital meats to come in,
Not that I'm picking on it. but-
Well, but now that is peddling, that's not taking orders, is it?
Well, what's taking, well, I mean, if you,
Just like, you know, capital means.
I look at taking orders as, you know,
I think
taking
we better
order
make
and
a motion
deliver
to
later.
table it
Yeah.
till do
but. I'll
further.
second that motion.
If we only had a solicitor here
I
tonight.
don't think it, I think we need more definitional.
yeah, we definitely need more definition. Okay.
You have to friend the food truck together, you'd sure like to know how it's supposed to work.
Okay, new business. I'm falling asleep in 15 minutes.
Well, think about Andrew, he's been here since 6:30.
I'll pay if somebody wants to make a Dunkin' run.
Okay, consider approving a resolution extending the refuse and recycling contract with Penn Waste for 2022. We discussed this in the budget meeting. It basically just extends the contract and increases the price of the contract to cover the tipping fees.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and continue the contract for the next year with a higher rate that we have discussed.
I'll second it.
Okay?
Any questions?
Any questions? Comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. Resolution setting the refuse and recycling collection rates. I think we just did that in one fell swoop.
No, we have to do this separate, don't we? Because it
Yeah,
has the number. I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the resolution setting the refuse and recycling collection rate to $320 per year.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. You good? Okay, consider approving a resolution authorizing the traffic signal maintenance agreement with PennDOT for the installation of crosswalk signals on Main Street.
This is just another PennDOT issue. So they said we needed the shared crosswalk agreement during the highway occupancy permit application process. So we were all ready to go through with that. They said, just wait, we want you to do this traffic signal maintenance agreement, which is ridiculous because it's pedestrian speed sign, or pedestrian flashing sign that's run by solar. It's not a push button. But these are the frustrating things when you try to do something for the benefit of the community and the visitors of the borough, and you have to deal with PennDOT to get something productive done. So
Is that gonna hold up the crosswalk again till they get this, or it doesn't have?
that's, well, yeah, we had to wait for a meeting because this had to be done at a public meeting for approval, so.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the traffic signal maintenance agreement with PennDOT for the installation of crosswalk signals on Main Street.
One little clarification, what if we don't vote for it?
It'll stop the,
Process.
we won't get the HOP. So we could do it on Franklin Street, but we couldn't do it on Main Street,
You mean the lights?
just pedestrian signal.
Yeah, remember the kids came and.
I just wanna make sure I completely understand this, like, that's what I thought.
And basically, this is saying that the borough is responsible to upkeep of the sign.
We should probably do it anyway.
Which we
Yeah,
have to
we
do
would
anyway.
have to do it.
Well, then, if we did it anyway, then they give us the devil because we were fooling around with,
Okay.
state road sign.
I have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. Okay, we have a petition to open the alley.
This I do have.
This is your alley, right?
Yep. Runs between Main Street and Franklin. It's never been closed, it just has to be adopted because for some reason, they always said it
Do you
wasn't.
plow snow in there now, Donnie?
No,
No.
don't. No, really.
Has anybody looked at see how difficult it would be to do, because there's no, as I remember, there's no place to put anything.
Well, years ago, we used to plow it years ago.
You plowed it up until last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Then why did we stop?
Yeah, why did we stop?
Because.
Because Tanya told you.
Yeah, Tony told us to stop.
So you don't have any problem plowing it?
No.
Okay.
The only thing.
My vote is.
Yeah, well, wait a minute, the only thing is, there is a manhole that's there in the beginning of the alley that we do need to do something with because we already destroyed one of our plows on it.
Oh, okay.
So that has to be, the blacktop, everything has to be fixed there. So the road does need some work.
Can we find out how much it would cost to fix the road?
Well, I mean, Donnie and I did, again, this is rough numbers today, of just basically full depth repair, stone, base course, wearing course, and probably the entire length. It looks like it's about 250 feet long, about 12 feet wide, give or take. And probably around 20,000 basically just to get the road completely up. But
Let's say 22. I'm usually really close on this.
But again, I mean, that's a one-time thing. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point, you're probably looking at 20, 25 years of,
Yeah.
for the
And
amount
plus,
of traffic.
Oh, yeah.
And we've said we were going to work on some alleys and side streets and stuff, so that'll just be one of the
Do we have
ones.
an ordinance for this alley with a description and everything else?
So,
Right way?
this is the first step. The first step was getting the petition in front of council. So tonight, it's on the agenda, but in order to move forward, I did provide you the last sheet in your packet. There is the section of the Borough Code 1732 and backwards 1731 because you have to reference 32 before 31. We have to, should be the, keep going.
Back of the
Keep going.
picture.
Oh, gotcha. There you go. I did highlight a couple, so we'll skip down to 1731B. We do have to do an ordinance. We have to advertise it once a week for 2 weeks. And we have to give personal notice to the property owners that are listed in here before the first advertisement. So we'll have to have that ordinance, that'll have to have sufficient data in order to identify the property.
What's the personal notice mean? We have to go to their house?
Mail.
Mail?
Yeah.
So
Um,
how, go ahead.
And basically, we just have to have a hearing before the next meeting to open the street. I mean, the regulations are in here. There's just a process to go forward, to move forward with it, but it's all outlined and did, like I said, highlighted a couple things, how long we have, 60 days from the date of petition, which we dropped off on the 12th, so.
Are we sure legally that it was ever closed? That's what doesn't
Yeah,
make-
we looked through everything, and it was never on, there was quite a few alleys that were listed as closed, this was not one of them. So it's just,
So then it should be
just
So
so,
it really should be open, do we really have to go through this?
yes, yeah, I don't think there's,
So this,
It was never adopted.
yeah, it was never adopted. In order to adopt it and open it, you're gonna need the ordinance, especially,
oh, this is the one by the.
Then-
We've got some other roads in town. that
I was gonna say,
same
are there
way.
other roads or I guess alleys that are in a similar situation?
Yeah, but we don't have a petition on those ones.
Correct, I'm just asking if there's other, and if this is a long answer, we can follow up on this some other time, but how does this happen? Like, how do we have we'll call it a borough road, but
Yeah, a road that's been taken care of for 30 years, and then all of a sudden.
Yeah,
it's-
I just think it wasn't adopted, we were taking care of it, for whatever reason, we stopped taking care of it, now we want to start taking care of it again, but it's not on the books. This will actually benefit us, because it gives us, does it give us more mileage, or no? And alleys don't really
I
count.
don't know, it's
250 feet.
Well, isn't there another road that intersects that? There's another road that
Yes.
intersects that alley, and so
Sure.
basically that road has to dead end into that alley, and if they
Yeah,
decide
we
they
gotta
want to block it off, they can't get through, and there's a guy got a parking lot down on the other side of that.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, Marlon's garage.
Yeah, there was a lot
Yeah.
of areas, there was a lot of areas of town that I used to plow when I first came here, and then years later, they said, oh, that's not a road, that doesn't belong to us. You know what I mean, like back behind the.
Yeah, because I remember Denny's, and I've been in that area for quite a few years, and I'll tell you what, that has been always plowed for as long as I can remember.
It's been tarred and chipped 3 times since
Yeah.
I lived there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
And I mean, you've got people that have driveways in
Right.
the back of their houses.
they have
That's
a
just
right of
because-
way for 38, 36 Franklin has a right of way that comes up there,
Yes.
and those people park off the street in that lot there.
Well, now, there is sewer that goes through that alley and then back behind the houses there, so you do wanna make sure that sewer line doesn't need anything upgrading or whatever before we spend $20,000 on paving. You know, so.
Well, they can charge you for last year for having your sewer line on their property, can't they?
I'd like to make a motion
Please do.
that we advertise for an ordinance and create the ordinance to open the alley that has been petitioned.
I would definitely second that, because I live right across from
Any,
that.
any discussion?
I'm taking it back.
Is somebody gonna write a description for this that,
Did
you
you
know,
use that, Donnie?
very distance width or something that,
Yeah.
so we know what's gonna happen, so 15 years from now, some councilman sitting here saying, or somebody's fence is too close, encroaching on the alley, and, well,
Yeah.
Well, if they investigate or advertise for the ordinance, I mean,
Well, I think the description needs to be in the resolution, so, right?
Okay.
It'll be in the resolution. Yeah. For ordinance, right?
We just have to move kind of quick on that in order to comply with borough code.
yeah, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote is aye. All right. Is there any correspondence? Have you got something else? No?
we wait now.
All right.
I had a question.
There is.
Andy.
Public comment? I dare you.
So So the Man and Parker thing got withdrawn?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna actually say something about that. But yeah, Man and Parker withdrew their zoning petition to redo their thing too. That was part of the whole Phil Robinson thing, and so
We have
that's,
to make that,
at least for right now, it's all done.
we have to make a formal acceptance of that, or agree that we, you know, we accept it, or is it just, as it is?
I don't think so, I mean, they withdrew
They
it.
withdrew it. Well, that's the second time they withdrew, right?
Well,
Well,
this
they
was
withdrew the
the
other.
actual plan,
Okay,
yeah, that 3 lot.
yeah.
Public comment?
We're gonna make you all sit in these chairs next week.
Would probably be good.
You probably would go a little fast.
Okay. All done?
I'll make a motion. Yeah, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Yeah, did you get that? You made all the first and all the seconds.
Yeah.
Years ago.
You trying to go for a record here or what?
Every alley that was paved. got
I was gonna say, you and I had a good thing going there.
There you go.